call this regular meeting of City Council to order at 7 p.m. May the 10th, 2021. Before we proceed any further, I would like us to stand and acknowledge the passing of Stella Lawford, longtime city councilor and friend to many of us. Her service to the city definitely is still talked about and will be remembered for a long time. So without further ado, rest in peace, Stella. Thank you very much. Next, I would like to recognize that we are all on Treaty 5 land and that we are all treaty people. Thank you. Next is approval of the agenda. There is an amendment. We are moving the AMM report to May 25th. I guess I need to make an amendment to change to amend the agenda. We need approval first. And I have approval to amend the agenda. Councillor Fountain, Councillor Prue, all those in favor? Thank you. So I'd like approval of the agenda as amended. Councillor Valentino, Councillor McMurdo, all those in favor? Thank you. Next, we have a presentation delegation of the pool committee update. I believe we have Todd Harwood, and I still want to say Rochelle Kopp, and I know that's not right. So.
Just came today to, I guess, to let council know that we still exist and we're still committed to building a new pool in the community. We haven't met with you in a while, and we don't have a ton of updates, but there are some small things, I guess, that we wanted to share. I don't feel like our committee has lost its passion for a new pool for the community, but the pandemic has definitely been a road bump for us, a bit of a barrier. So we're trying to work around that and through it and be as creative as we can in terms of generating dollars for the pool. I think many of you will know that the biggest project I think that we hosted was the Winter Wonderland over Christmas. Raised about $60,000 through that project. Happened to work the gate a few nights, and I think obviously the revenue generated was pretty fantastic. I think better than any of us could have anticipated. COVID actually might have helped us there because people weren't really going anywhere and there wasn't a ton to do. But I think the other piece was just the community spirit. I think it was really great for the community. So kind of proud. Thanks to Mayor Smoot for contributing the spot to go, but and the volunteers who came in and made it work. So we think that was pretty fantastic. A couple of things that we're just in terms of our commitment. We are meeting twice a week now. We've all committed that we need to get the train moving again. And so once every 2 weeks, we're meeting to figure out where we are and get things moving. A couple of our priorities are finalizing our corporate donations piece that we'd like to bring to you to share in terms of corporate donations. A framework similar to what was used with the building of the TRCC is one of the frameworks that we're using, as well as the Manitoba Games, Friends of the Games framework. So we're working with both of those to finalize that, and we'd like to share that with you once it's all done. We do have, our group has been really focused on some of the grassroots funding things. We talked about a gala evening again to generate some revenue, and we're already talking about Winter Wonderland next year and these sorts of things. So it is top of mind, and it's not lost on us that we need to raise some dollars. Really appreciate the council's commitment to keeping the pool operating dollars on the table. I think it speaks to your commitment to the pool, and we want to thank you for that. I think that is a big help. I guess that's all I really have in terms of a presentation. You can try and answer some questions. I don't actually, Rochelle.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to echo Todd's comments about thanking council for keeping the dollars allocated for pool operations. I think it speaks a lot for you wanting to keep our community healthy and keep our community safe. We know these are huge issues within the community, so I think keeping those there will definitely sort of send the message to the community that we are serious at our plans, and we look forward to having something to offer them soon for all ages and be inclusive to all abilities.
I understand you've seen the plans from Stantec. You've kind of seen the drawings, and okay, so we're all on the same page there.
Any questions, council? Councilor Elser?
Just want to thank you for the presentation and for continuing to work, even though we're in the pandemic. It's tough to have meetings. It's tough to, to communicate. And so you coming tonight, we talk about the Winter Wonderland, which was a great success. And I know there's other things that's being put together to raise money. So again, thank you. And I think when volunteers in this community, gets together, really puts an effort in, it can change things, and it has changed things in the past and will in the future. So thank you very much for your effort.
Anyone else? Okay, see, you've done such a great job. I would like to thank you, and I think it's very important, even with some of the grants that we've got in and the funding that we keep the public and the pool in the forefront, because the provincial government and federal government does read our newspapers. So as long as they know we're still passionate, it puts us that much closer to our funding dollars. So thank you both for your presentation, and thank you for all that you're doing for the pool committee.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Okay, so next, we're going to go to community comments and feedback.
Ron Matichuk, 20 Ash Street. I went to your financial plan last Thursday, or a week ago Thursday. Could you tell everybody here what the percentage of the people present were opposed and what percent were for the financial plan?
There was actually 10 persons that spoke on different parts of the budget that night that were opposed to it. And after the meeting was over, I personally had 3 that reached out to me that had been in favor of it. So we basically, believe there was 21 people altogether that listened to the budget, and 13 made comments.
The question was, how many were opposed? How many were for that were present at the financial plan?
There was 10 opposed and 3 for it.
That is incorrect. Let's try again.
Excuse me, sir. It's all in perspective of how we want to say.
100% of the people there were opposed. Now, let's put that into perspective. We just heard a presentation on the aquatic center that you people want to build. At that meeting, I was also there. I attended that as well. There was 100 people in the Electrum Theater, 10 people were for it, and we jumped on the bandwagon right away because it's spend, spend, spend. This time, with the financial plan, it's 100%, but that's not good enough. It's still spend, spend, spend. We can't change your course, can we? That's what's going on here. That's what the people see.
Thank you, sir. Please.
Okay.
Continue.
Since we're on numbers, once again, the financial plan, since this council took office in 2018, we were at 21.807 was the mill rate. With this plan, it will be 26.150. That is 20%. Every time I hear anyone talking about the budget, it's a bunch of voodoo mathematics, 2% this, 2 point this, that. The actual number is 20% since you people started sitting here. That's where we are. You guys are talking about spending more money on infrastructure. Great idea for Thompson, if the right people are in place. We've seen so much waste in the last 2 years, unless you've done something in order to address the problem with waste, because from what I see, you guys are getting about $2 to $3 worth of value out of every $5 spent. The bigger pot is not the answer. It's just going to be more waste.
Thanks, sir. Yes,
Nelson Fruiter put up his hand online. We'll let him speak first.
okay. Nelson? Unmute yourself
Can you hear me now?
if you can.
Okay, good. So I was concerned about how much time I'd be allowed. I'll try and be brief. Couple of things. I participated in the conversation that Mr. Matichuk was just referring to. At that time, there were different people that were casting aspersions against character of council and others. And I find that to be unfair and unreasonable. They're all coming forward to try and do the very best that they can. Unless there's specific evidence of some wrongdoing, it is unfair and unreasonable. We should all think about that. Our community groups rely on people to volunteer and come forward. But moving on, I still have not changed my opinion that this budget should not carry forward. I volunteer in this community. I find it odd to be on the same side of the conversation as some of the characters here, but the fact of the matter is I look at the proposed budget, and in particular, there's a page for community groups. I volunteer at our Thompson Crisis Center. It's a shelter for women and children escaping violence, intimate partner violence. And intimate partner relationships have changed in our time, where we now provide services to people who would not historically be provided those services. Yet, I find somewhere between museums and the Humane Society, and believe me, I'm not for 1 second arguing against supporting the Humane Society, but I am saying that there are community groups not considered in this budget that should be considered in this budget, and I would urge you to go back and have that conversation. Thirdly, I'll try to be brief here. I look around at the operation of our city. Those of you that have been here a while know I am a small business operator, and I do some of the same things that many of our city workers do. And I wonder why city workers are not being engaged in some of the work that they rightfully should be as unionized workers in this community. It's offensive to us. They are good people doing good jobs. Resource them correctly, like the painting, for instance. That could probably be done in about half the time if they were resourced correctly. I would urge you to go back and have another conversation about this. Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Robert Chuckery, 52 Rankin. I've been in this community for almost 45 years. I was at the budget meeting. I didn't speak because the concerns that I had were brought up by other members of our community. I am 100% against the budget. I would like to know, my question is, you've had a week now to be able to look at all the people that said no to this budget. Have you had a meeting in camera or public meeting, whatever, to discuss the concerns of the public? And have you taken anything off the table that we don't need to spend money on? The pool, for sure, is one of them. Taxes is another one. Have you had a meeting to discuss this, or are you just going to go and continue on with the budget as is?
I won't say that we've had a meeting directly, sir, but I know and I know other councillors have gone out and continued our talking with people in the community. And as I've always said, even before, it was we listen to all our people, not just the 10 or 15 that show up in public. And everybody will get a chance tonight to express why they're for or against the budget. We will go from there. Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, Wayne Skorchuk, 7 Hargrave Day, 53 years in Thompson now. I know a lot of you people here. I'm retired. I'll try to make this as quick as possible. I'm retired now, and for the last 15 years, this will be the 15th year in a row Thompson has increased its taxes on us. I had planned on retiring and staying here because I really love my community. I've grown, like I said, 53 years. My plan was to die here. I am not looking at that anymore because I already have to give away one of my 12 checks to pay my taxes, not including the water bills and everything that are going up and everything. This council, councils before, and I'm sure some of you are going to run for the next council too. I would really like to know when you people are gonna get a hold of your spending and stop raising my taxes so that I can afford to die here in the place that I love. And that's about all I have to say.
Thank you. Anything further?
Me once again, just to further a little on what was just said. Every tax levy, you people call it a levy because it's disguised very well. Nobody wants to talk about taxes, right? Nobody will show up at a levy meeting. But every year, there are opportunities to help out the taxpayer. Usually it comes in the way of such things as the school district of Mystery Lake lessening their amount. And every time they lessen their amount, this crew is to gobble it up. Every time. We were given $818,000 on top of that as COVID relief. Nothing was put towards taxes to give us relief. Every time something is coming our way, it's blocked by Mayor Colleen.
Thank you, sir. You may sit down.
So my question is, has the North Stars ever approached you for goalie? You block it all.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we've actually gone 15 minutes in our 10-minute thing, so thank you all for your questions and concerns. Next, we'll go to adoption of minutes. 6.1 is public hearing variation order number 996-21, April 26, 2021. Resolution 2021-067. Moved by Councillor Valentino, seconded by Councillor Crew. Be it resolved that the minutes of the public hearing for variation order number 996-21 held in Council Chamber, City Hall, Thompson, Manitoba on Monday, April 26, 2021 be adopted as circulated. Administration?
Nothing further.
Second?
Nothing further.
All those in favor? Carried. Six point two is the regular meeting of council, April 26, 2021. Resolution 2021-068, moved by Deputy Mayor Wong, seconded by Councillor Colburn. Be it resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held in Council Chamber, City Hall, Thompson, Manitoba on Monday, April 26, 2020 be adopted as circulated. Administration?
Nothing further.
Les?
There is several errors in the minutes that if you would give me a minute, I will outline them for you. So Councillor Lundmark joined the meeting at 7:36 p.m. that night. We were at 7.3 of the agenda. He joined and rejoined. I counted at least 4 times, only recorded once in the minutes. He did not vote on a number of resolutions because he was not connected. At 7.6 of the agenda, it was a recorded vote. And it does not show Councillor Lundmark voting absent, for, or against. Nothing in the minutes. I raised a point of order because of his condition. We talked about that. And again, it was not addressed. You had said in the minutes, quote unquote, that you would leave it up to him to make that decision. It was never addressed in that meeting. And I really am concerned with all of the things that happened that night. If any of these things should have been passed, because I don't think it was right. I took the opportunity on the weekend to go through this book that we were given when we were elected. Once elected, what's expected, and I'll tell you, it has a lot of information that if people's not reading, they ought to read it. And that meeting, to me, was not conducted very well, and therefore I will not support adopting those minutes because they should not be supported because of the reasons that I pointed out.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Madam Mayor, you're supposed to tell me first, actually. I do have to share the same concern. With all due respect to Councillor Lundmark, this is exactly quote unquote, that's his word, not my word. Sorry, my request for tonight's meeting. I'm not well and can't look at the iPad screen right now. So here's my question, Madam Mayor. Does he have a doctor note to prove that he is well now? To cast the vote today? That's my concern.
Yes, as a matter of fact. Counselor Landmark, do you want to reply also?
Well, I don't think that's any of their business, first of all. And yes, I'm here, I'm capable.
And can you explain why last time that you kept getting kicked off the internet or in general?
Well, there was something wrong with the connection, that's all. I've reconnected 3 or 4 times.
Thank you.
It was just a technical thing. I was on there.
I guess we were remiss in not connecting you, mentioning it every time you did it. I will go to who else had their hand up. Councillor Valentino and Councillor Colburn.
Yeah, just, I was also disconnected and connected a few times also, because I was in my office and it was hard to get on. And I was kicked off right at the end and missed, I think the mayor's comments, but yeah, I had the same issues.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Colburn?
Thank you. My question is, I'd like to know the legality of coming in the middle of a meeting. Are we allowed to up and down? Are we allowed to come in halfway through the meeting and cast our votes like we've been here all night? I couldn't find the answer. So, you know, I want to know what the legality is, because if it was illegal to do that, well, then everything should be going.
Okay, I know we've had other councilors in the past come in during the meeting that it can be checked out. Who else had their hand up? Who is first? Or less? Okay.
Let's be very clear. Any of us can be injured, any of us can get sick, with all due respect to Council Landmark. This is not pointing at him. In fact, Madam Chair, it's pointing at you as a chairperson. At 4:30, give or take, most of us got a message from Council Landmark saying he could not attend the meeting because of a concussion, and he was waiting on a doctor, that he, you know, it was all kinds of stuff in the email. I'm not gonna read it out because it's a kind of, I don't want the public to be reading everything we discussed there, because I don't know if that's relevant. What is relevant is he excused himself from the meeting. And at 7:36 PM, for whatever reason, halfway through an agenda, he shows up. That's my concern, and not unlike Councillor Colburn, I spend about 3 hours on the weekend searching the municipal act and everything else to see. So I'm gonna ask for a ruling, because if that's the case, I can go and mow my lawn until 7:45 and then come on council meeting. I think that when you excuse yourself, you are excused. And that night, I believe there was a lot of pressure, in my opinion, I'll be very careful. I believe there's a lot of pressure put on someone that had been injured to come on that meeting that night, and that, to me, is awful. If someone cannot, as he indicated over and over in a text, he could not function properly, then I gotta question us as a council. I really do. What is our priority? And are we following what we're supposed with code of conduct and whatever else is in there? And regards of who else was having trouble, the only time I seen Councillor Valentino was once. She said she couldn't vote because of the auto. That's in the minutes. Other than that, that was it. Councillor Lundmark was in and out, and the least that could have been done was at 7:40, Councillor Lundmark was mentioned, we had a recorded vote, he wasn't there. That was not recorded. So what is minutes? Minutes are to be documented properly. This is legal proceedings. This is not some subcommittee where we're having a general discussion. These are legal proceedings where the public gets to read them. Exactly. That's where I found it on the weekend. I went through the minutes, and I have a real problem with the way that meeting was conducted. And I was, well, let it stand that Mayor Smith, I disagree with the way you handled it, and you did not give a proper ruling when it comes to a point of order, as far as I'm concerned, because you did not get a reply, whether he was fit to carry on or not. You did not get that. It does not reflect in the minutes. Therefore, again, I would not support the minutes because it's just absolutely wrong.
And as I've mentioned before, when I sit up here, I cannot see when people phone in and have their hands up or they haven't. I have asked all of you to keep an eye on that because I have no knowledge of who comes and goes. So if nobody mentions it to me, I do not see it. Thank you. Councillor Valentino?
No, I already spoke, Tammy was one we met, you know.
Oh, Kevin?
Actually, I withdraw.
Okay, Earl?
No, I never.
Okay, yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Here you go again. I'm just going to read out the quote unquote. This is not my word. This is Councillor Lama. With all due respect, I have a concussion with continuing headache and haven't been able to read much or concentrate well for a week. I'm hoping it's getting a little better day by day. I haven't even been able to go through the budget information yet. I will try again this afternoon. So, yes, he's right. None of my business about his health. But as an elected official, I have a legal obligation and to make sure to safeguard the integrity of the democracy. So I'm questioning him again. Does he have a doctor note to prove that he's well now to do this tonight? This is his word, not my word. Madam Mayor, I think you need to roll this.
Councillor Valentino?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't know, you know, maybe he felt better and he was able to join the meeting, just like if you work late, you join the meeting, like it's somebody's health concern is nobody's business but that person's.
You made it our business.
I think that this is totally out of line and we should vote on the resolution.
Thank you. Councillor Prue?
Yeah, I think if we need a doctor's note for him to say he's better, then we should have a doctor's note saying he can't vote either. It's gotta go both ways, so. But if he did read in the afternoon, I don't know if he did or not, but if it was good, then no one's here to say that we're not doctors. So to me, it should be a both-way street, that's all.
Thank you.
I was able to review the minutes and the things I needed to. And I've been there through the whole budget process, so.
Thank you. Councillor Fountain, did you have your hand up?
I did, Madam Mayor, thank you very much. I don't want to jump in on this conversation that I'm going to bring to you right now. It has nothing to do with this, but I think it's important, at least for all of the council that are here, have brought this up to listen carefully. People's medical information is privileged. And I think that councilors can make the point, and I don't necessarily disagree without pointing to the exact issue. I know last week when I had some medical issues, I was very worried, given what would have happened last time, that they not be raised. So I just, again, I'm not jumping into this conversation at all, other than to point out that medical information is privileged. It shouldn't be put out there publicly. And I do that with respect for everybody, out of respect, because I know all of us will deal with this probably over the term. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Coburn?
Well, this is about something you said, Your Honor. You said you can't see the screen when somebody wants to speak and this and that. Well, if you can't see it, well, then you should get it fixed, or you should disabolish Zoom. Let these people come here and sit in front of all these people and speak to it, not being on camera, which you can't see. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. I've heard this. Anthony, do you have any?
My understanding of the municipal act, your worship, is that it's up to an individual councillor to decide when they're attending a meeting or not, and what they're voting on and what they're not, and whether they disqualify themselves or withdraw on certain questions or not. It's not for the rest of council to determine. So.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we're going to go with the resolution.
Tammy's waiting.
Oh, okay, Tammy?
Councillor Ellsworth did call a point of order, so you have to rule on that point.
Okay, okay, so on Councillor Ellsworth's point of order, concerning that there was, I know it was mentioned that night that there was issues coming and going. And I do know that Councillor Lundmark had sent an earlier text that he would not be partaking in the committee. And then there was a later one, I think, to me, that he would be. I can look at it up at later if you wish to see it. And with that, I think we will continue with the resolution on the minutes, and it will speak for themselves. Thank you. Resolution 2021-068, moved by Deputy Mayor Wong, seconded by Councillor Colburn. Be it resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of the council held in Council Chamber, City Hall, Thompson, Manitoba, on Monday, April 26, 2020, be adopted as circulated. All in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Carried.
Clarification, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Did Council Lundmark say aye to oppose or aye for? 'Cause he said oppose, right?
Councillor Lundmark, are you for or opposed to the motion for resolution?
For it. For it.
6.3, public hearing for levy bylaw financial plan, April 29th, 2021. Resolution 2021-069, moved by Councillor Valentino, seconded by Councillor Crew. Be it resolved that the minutes of the public hearing of Thompson Financial Plan held in Council Chamber, City Hall, Thompson, Manitoba, on April 29th, 2021 be adopted as circulated. Administration,
Nothing further.
Councillor Valentino.
I just thank the public that was engaged to show up. It's unfortunate out of the 13,678 people that we get such a poor turnout. So, so hopefully next year we'll keep trying to have more input from the public to show up. Thank you.
Councillor Ellsworth.
Yeah, I gotta respond or joke. The public is not gonna show up when no matter what they say, no one's listening. And with your indulgence, I'll read you one section,
Okay,
because it does apply to the minutes.
I am just going to make a small statement before so
Yeah.
that we're all, if that's
Yeah.
okay. As we complete the budget process, we'll be hearing comments from councillors. This, as usual, has not been an easy process, and we all had input and a chance to advocate our vision for the city of Thompson. Each and every one of us had ideas that made the cut and those that did not. It's up to each one of us individuals to base our decision on what we are hearing from citizens of Thompson on how we move forward to make Thompson an even better place to live, work, play, and visit. We had the public forum and Zoom presentation. At that time, 10 persons gave their reasons publicly as to why or what part of they were not in favor for. Others after that forum called us later to share their vote of support for the budget. It has been up to each of us to listen and explain our stand on decisions and explains why we stand for the way we are going to vote. Each councillor and myself will have a chance to deliver their support or opposition to the budget as per section 142 of the City of Thompson procedure bylaw. We will go through all of those that wish to speak. Then there will be one rebuttal. There will not be a rehash of the original speeches. The second chance to speak will be limited to 5 minutes as per City of Thompson procedure bylaw 139. I'd like to thank you all in advance for your cooperation. So basically your first one can be whatever you want to say, sir.
Well, I'm usually a pretty fast speaker, so I'll probably get to speak 5 times. But in this book that we were given in our training, that talks about public hearings, listen carefully. Requirement for public hearings recognize the important role that the public plays in the decision-making process. Public hearings enable council to provide comprehensive information on a proposal to citizens and obtain their input on the proposal before making a final decision. Knowing the views of the public will assist council to make the best possible decision on behalf of all citizens and ratepayers in the municipality. As many as you say, talk to you. I've been around Thompson for a long time too. President of one of the largest unions in Western Canada and be very involved. And so if you want to know about people, people call me. And I'm going to tell you, for every one you give me 4, I'll find you 10 against. So whether it was 13,000 showed up, or it was 10 that spoke against it, people are not in favor of this budget. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Colburn?
Yeah, your comments again, you said that 3 people spoke. They didn't speak publicly. They still privately to do. So I would appreciate it if their people are not mentioned in this meeting anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
We're just adopting minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
Pardon?
Apologize, Your Honor.
So with that being said, if there's no more questions, we'll call for the question. All those in favor of resolution 2021-069? Thank you. Opposed?
Brian had his hand up.
Pardon?
Brian had his hand up.
Brian?
For 4.
I just said aye.
Okay, thank you. So opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next, we have correspondence. A letter from Jocelyn Pauls, Senior Manager, Finance for Sport Manitoba, in regards to the grant holdback of the 2018 Winter Games and the Legacy Fund. Kathy, you were on the committee. Can I get you to read this letter?
Sure. This is to Murray Kissick and Sandra Rossich. They were the co-chairs. To Murray and Sandra, on behalf of Sport Manitoba, we are enclosing the final administrative grant holdback of $10,000 payable to the city of Thompson as outlined in the final legacy plan details. This final check is released following the completion of all final audit reporting, bank closures, and dissolution notices received. Thank you both for your commitment in wrapping up the games and for the resulting legacies that were left to the city. Should you have any questions, please let me know. It can be reached at 204-925-5915 or jacqueline.pauls@sportmanitoba.ca.
Thank you. So that means the 2018 games have wrapped up. It was a very much of financial success for the city of Thompson, the province, and for the legacy of sports in the Thompson area. Yes, Councilor Valentino?
Just to further to that, we discussed this letter at the Finance and Liga Committee. And I also brought the information that this is actually a huge legacy because there hasn't been another provincial Manitoba Games because of COVID since 2018. And there was also an economic impact study that was completed and presented to council October, I think it was 5th of 2018, that provided the actual economic impact of holding this kind of an event. There was some question about the report, so I did re-get it from Sport Manitoba, and I have passed it on to Casper so we can have it back at finance so the exact numbers can be represented. Thank you, Mayor Smoke.
Thank you. Anybody else? Comments? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not trying to beat the dead horse, but somehow a lot of councils on this term do not know the historical about this winter game. It was a good event. It brought a lot of light to the Thompson. But one thing I'm not really agree with is the way that the former mayor that approached the council to fund this program. The word from him is like they're going to make a profit for city of Thompson. My interpretation is when you put $1, you should have $1 or $1 sum back. That's called investment return. And he also said we bring a lot of business for Thompson. So I did a lot of people approached me throughout the time, especially the one that dealing with a lot of sport equipment, which is inflatable. He was mad about this. He said, I didn't even shop one pair of skate throughout this event. And myself own a restaurant, I didn't even serve one meal to this. So I'm not trying to hit the dead horse. The statement here is say $1.3 million bring it to this community. I'm really questioning about this amount, where they gathered it. So that's only my comment. I will talk about this week again. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Dr. Valentino?
Just as I further stated, the entire economic impact strategy, the numbers were presented already to council and mayor, and they will be represented to clearly show that there was a huge economic gain for this city. And a lot of councillors around this room were familiar with the Manitoba Games because we had such an amount of volunteers. And I know some in the room today were part of organizations and sports that were able to start because of the Manitoba Games legacy dollars. And a lot of our local community groups are able to have done things, and within our own structure for our recreation, we were able to do things. There wasn't a cost to hosting the Manitoba Winter Games. It was a definite benefit, and I would like to have the actual economic study presented to public and to council in 2 weeks' time at the meeting, so that our public can see the numbers for themselves. Thank you, Mayor Smoot.
Thank you. We will arrange for that. Deputy Mayor Wong?
Thank you. I want to speak one more time. The resolution approved to fund this was $250,000 of the taxpayer money. And our return of City of Thompson, based on the financial legacy here, $60,558. Is that a good return for the investment? In my opinion, no. When you look at all this, $423,000 of the grant, some organizations do get benefit. I'm happy for them. But the whole thing to me is not running properly.
Thank you. Councillor Fountain?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, the money aside, I did want to just publicly send my thank you out to Sport Manitoba. You may or may not have been aware that I was involved somewhat loosely with the wrestling club here. Those kids, from what I've seen and compared with other groups, are probably the most needy kids that I've ever come across. Many times not having socks. So I don't know where that organization is through COVID, but I certainly would like to thank them for not only donating the small amount of money, but I believe that there were mats also donated in kind. And I definitely know that this group needed that, and I appreciate that. Money aside and budget aside and benefit aside, I do appreciate that. Thank you very much to Sport Manitoba.
Thanks very much. Anybody else? Okay, Councillor McMurdo.
Yeah, just a kind of a small item, but there was a number of things that were purchased for the Northflex pool. I'm just wondering if there's any efforts on behalf of the administration or whatever to recoup some of that, like the lockers, bleachers, or will they be able to be utilized in the new facility?
My understanding is all those items that were purchased would try to be salvaged, either repurposed in a new pool or sold off. Well, they still have value.
Okay.
But I don't believe anything is in action on that. at this point. So it's all been identified, yes.
Nothing further? Okay, thank you. Next, we're going to 9.1, resolutions, a resolution to approve the 2021 financial plan. Again, we will be letting all councillors have their chance to speak. And then for the rebuttal will be 5 minutes after for the second question. And we will only be going as per the municipal and our Thompson procedural bylaw. We will be following, but there will only be 2 comments per person. Resolution 2021-070. Moved by Councillor Crew, seconded by Councillor Valentino. Be it resolved that council approve the 2021 financial plan. Administration? Yes, Jenny?
Okay, so the 2021 financial plan has a mill rate set out for the both the school district and the city of Thompson, as well as provincial ESL. The school district mill rate set out in the financial plan is 20.470. The city of Thompson is 26.150 for total mill rate for residential of 46.62. The commercial mill rate as set out is 8.809 for the provincial ESL, 20.470 for school district industry lake, and 26.15 for city of Thompson, for a total mill rate of 55.429. The net impact increase for the residential is 2%, and for commercial is 1.64%. A public hearing was held on April 29th as per the municipal act, and the financial plan is due to the province by May 15th of each year.
Thank you. Okay, next I'll go to Councillor Prue as the mover of the resolution.
Yeah, I'm in favor of this budget. We've worked all year for it, and although it's not perfect, that's for sure. It is one of the most whole budgets I've seen that helps people that not only pays taxes, but it helps children, people visiting, people renting. There's a lot going to the community on this budget, which I'm really excited for. Obviously, the large investments that are coming through, everyone's pretty much heard of that. We're all ready for some new roads and some new infrastructure. We had a minimal increase for the amount that we are receiving. I can safely say we do get like our most bang for our buck in northern Manitoba. I do pay property taxes in 4 other locations. And by far, not just because I'm on council, I can safely say that here we do get most bang for our buck. There's a house listed in Lynn Lake right now paying or for sale for $2,900 in tax, land taxes. So you can imagine what they get for their dollar and what we get. So again, I'm not gonna go on it for too long. I've obviously asked the public and people that I know, and I have not had pushback on it. So it makes me give no reason to be against this budget as a whole. I do hope we have some changes in the future. I hope we have better presentation to the public, as there were other people here for the budget, but they were confused on what all the numbers meant in that. And I think something that'd be a little easier to read, easier to follow, we might get more interest from the public and have a more accurate feedback from presentations. But all in all, I'm in favor of this budget, and there's a lot of good stuff coming to the community. And one more point, actually, sorry, is that there has been COVID dollars given to us, and we did allocate them as in the presentation. And I'm glad it was allocated that way, because COVID's not only taken a toll on our mental or on our financial well-being, but mostly I'm going to say our mental health. And to have things like the community gardens and stuff downtown and improving our safety and taking steps to improve efficiencies in our cities, extremely important. So everyone I've talked to, they have no problem with the few bucks a year it's going to cost them for everyone to enjoy it. So I'm in favor.
I'm not very happy with your comments there, young fella. Comparing us to the lake.
Or are you done, Conrad?
No, I am just on that comment. I just compare for all of northern Manitoba. Really, there's wherever you live, you can't compare us to Winnipeg. It's pretty tough. So that's why I said Lynn Lake. So there's Lynn Lake, Snow Lake, Thompson, the Paw, Flin Flon. Go on, but that's my thoughts.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Here's my point. You made some comments earlier, and I just want a clarification. Is it 5 minutes for each resolution, or if it's 5 minutes, I've been saving mine for the third reading, so I just want you to.
Okay, it is the first go round of all counselors is whatever you have for your presentation. The second go round is up to 5 minutes.
On each resolution. When we get down to the bylaws for the levy, that's a different thing. Correct?
Yes.
So I'll have 5 minutes now, 5 minutes second reading, 5 minutes third reading for my first go around if I want.
If you want.
Okay, thank you.
Did you wish to speak? Councilor Ellsworth.
Okay, I'm not gonna get in. I've prepared statements for third reading. I'm not gonna get into all of them, but here's what I'm going to get into. I want to be clear. Maybe people don't listen to the news. I don't know, but I do. I'm a counselor that probably attends, and I'm not bragging. That's what I signed up for 2.5 years ago. Probably 98% of what's happening in the city regarding to meetings, I'm here. I get all the information. I don't come in here not prepared. I read all the minutes, I read the agenda. Well, today again, or a couple days ago, we had Dr. Russo that shut down the restaurants in Thompson again, and many other things. And I would imagine with shutdown of restaurants, people get laid off. They got no work. The government finds some relief for it. But we're in a budget, which was already mentioned, when we're given $818,000 public knowledge. We presented it to the public to offset expenses, which could have been used to offset taxes. And we're going after the same people, the laid off people, the business that's not at full capacity. They can do the takeover, but not the dine in. Now, here's the thing that sticks for me. And I got to be careful because I'm not sure. I don't want to be in a conflict. I don't want to be censored. I don't want, it's pretty bad that I've lived there for 41 years and I've come to the council, I've sat for 2.5 years, and you're unsure because you're against something, if you're going to be censored or pointed out. And at this point, do that. Because I'm ready to leave at any time. I've wasted a lot of good time in 2.5 years trying to do the best I could. Here's the point. April the 26th, we did the first reading. April the 29th, you had a public hearing. Today, May the 10th, I am here to tell you what I heard in committee and what I heard at the public hearing was two different budgets. I wasn't a part of it. The budget changed from the expense and revenue by almost 1.3 million. Any other council aware of that, or is it just me? So when I was going through all this the week, and I'm thinking, why wasn't there a special meeting? I believe one of the people in the public talked about it, if there was a change to listen to the public. Well, I'm saying, you could change a slide. I've presented, Councilor Baldino presented, you could change slides, but you can't change the expense and the revenue of an overall budget without talking to your council. And I got the figures. I'm not about to put them out unless I'm asked to. Our financial officer has them, but there's almost a difference of 1.3 million that I don't know because I haven't been told where it's to. So how would I be, whether I was for or against this budget, how would I expect to come in now and vote on a financial plan when there's parts of it that I'm not familiar with? How does that work? Because I don't know. So I'm asking you, Mayor Smoot, whether you go to a financial officer, Jenny Prince, or city manager, after you give, tonight I'm requesting here in the public, where do you get the almost $3 million added to the budget? Because I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I've been wrong once in my life.
Jenny, do you have any comments?
Yes, so during the presentations, when we were reviewing it at the committee levels, it was determined that the revenues from the affordable housing grant were not included, and that was requested to be added in. So that was added into the budget.
Thank you. Anthony?
And that was the grant that the province passed over to a number of the larger municipalities for affordable housing. It's really a flow through. So there's an agreement that would be signed with the province. And then the city's role is to dole those dollars out. So the dollars don't stay with the city. It's a flow through to whatever agencies Manitoba Housing approves to have affordable housing projects within the community.
Thank you.
So
Councilor Ellsworth?
So would that not, and I'm asking again for clarification, would that not require us to be called? Because there is a change, and even I buy into it, okay, it's a flow through, but you change what we agreed to. You've added something. So either you leave it out or you bring it in on your full presentation, transparency, here it is. Because I'm sure I'm not the only counselor that noticed the difference. So I'm saying that I believe that there should have been, and I could be wrong, there should have been a special meeting called to explain that at least a phone call, a text, and email explaining why the budget went from this amount to this amount with a difference of 1.3 million. I'm not a loss. I've been part of budgets not only at City Hall, many places for years and years. And I would never present a budget that I had reviewed with my executive, in this case, the council, and then change it at a meeting. Like I'm honestly, I'm at a loss. I'm at a loss for it. It just doesn't seem right to me.
Anthony?
Yeah, so council was aware of that grant coming from the province and authorized me to sign the agreements to take that money. It wasn't included in the original presentation because it was a flow through. But a number of the councilors saw the presentation and noted that it wasn't mentioned and asked the administration to add it. It materially doesn't change much in the budget. It's a number reflected on the sheet. Those dollars will not stay with the city. They'll end up out as funding in the community.
The last rebuttal. And it's a very simple question. Who owns the budget? Who owns the budget?
All budgets belong to council.
Right. So if the budget belongs to council, and let's say it's one or two councilors raised it and said, oh, by the way, look, there's something missing there. That's fair. But don't you think that all of us, we were all elected. So now the information just goes to one or two, or does it go to the whole body? And that's the point. Whether you buy it or not, that is the point I'm making tonight. You do not have administration, and let me be very clear, there's a part in this book about administration's role as well, that I read this week. You do not have the right to change any part of that budget when I'm talking to council. You don't have that right. And you did that based on what I just heard by one or two people. And if the council was made of one or two, then I would challenge you, Mayor Smoot, pick your one or two councilors and the rest should leave and resign because we're no good to you. And that's not democracy. There's another word for that.
Councilor Crowe?
Yeah, I recall I was one of the people that asked for that to be added at the draft budget. But that was it. Just to bring up the memory, I was the one who brought up that the money was not on the slide. So that was at the draft, so it got edited after, it's my assumption.
And I will comment that I was also one of the people that noticed that it was not on the slide. Thank you. Earl?
Why wasn't the rest of the council notified at that time when you two were at that meeting? Why didn't you stand up and say, well, the right thing to do is to call a special meeting in council
Well, I think we
and solve
did.
this?
We did.
Instead,
mention
instead you two and whoever else was in that room made that decision for council. And that's just too many decisions like that are being made and council's not being presented with the right information for us to make the right decisions. Now, when I see something that's $1.3 million in difference, there's something wrong somewhere. It's not your $13, it's 1.3 million. How can you make that mistake? And how can you rule that it go in without dealing with council? You'd have probably got it in anyhow, but then you wouldn't have this backlash, right? It's not done the right procedure, right? And now we're debating over it.
It
Right.
was, Andre first.
Just from what I understand, I mean, it was a budget meeting and that's.
It
the
was a
draft.
budget
So,
presentation.
I don't know where else we're supposed to do this. I'm confused, I guess, it was at a budget
Point of
meeting, I
order.
mentioned it.
Point of order.
Yes, sir.
Then if it was at a budget meeting, then why wasn't it at the legal and financial meeting?
It wasn't a budget meeting, it was one of the budget presentations that we.
No,
brought
no,
up.
no. Listen, I read all the minutes before I came to this chamber. And I'm telling you that it was not changed at a budget meeting. If it was, it would have been changed in the presentation that was made to your people who decided to come to the Legal and Finance Committee, which I might add is very few. That's where the change should have came for, because the last time I checked, it's the Legal and Finance Committee that helps with the agenda, the administration puts together, but we say this should go, that should go. It wasn't made there, and if you don't, just go look in your minutes and see it. It's two different numbers. Holy cow.
Anyone else?
You have the rule on his point of order.
Pardon?
He made a point of order.
Okay. Can you please repeat your point of order?
The point of order is you're wrong. You are wrong in where it was done. And I'm saying, I don't disagree, if someone said it was part of the budget, we had a lot of budget meetings. It should have been presented at your finance Liga committee meeting, which is in camera. I'm not gonna get into the details of camera. But that's where it should be presented. And then it comes out, that was, to the May 29th or whatever our council meeting was, comes up to that meeting and then forward. It didn't come up there, Mayor Smoot. You presented with the additional information to the public without us seeing it. It didn't come up at that committee. So I'm just arguing.
Yeah, and I
But it
will
wasn't there.
say I am wrong that it did not, but when we were in the midst, when we were doing our employee presentations and that we were changing as we were going along. And that is when the question came up and that it was added. So yes, we possibly, I'll admit if that wasn't a procedure, it wasn't. But it was when we were still in the midst of changing the presentations as they were going along. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, I'm not choose to speak for this resolution, but since I heard a lot of make-up story, let me be clear. Okay, I was the only one person that pointed out to Jenny. He was sitting there, go to the slide to find it to the public. And I noticed that money is not added to there, so I asked Jenny, is it appropriate to add it to the budget? So now all these stories say that we heard this, we heard that, totally wrong. I'm the last person that told Jenny to add it there and wasn't presented to the staff at all. That was the final night. Before we go out to the public, I was sitting there, Jenny was sitting there, we go to the slide to clean up all the slide, the language, the number, to present to the public. I was the one. I don't know where you guys heard that from. I don't know. It just, to me, I have to speak up. I try not to stir up this. I try to be civil for that. But when I heard that, I heard that. That is not true. Madam Mayor, you were not here that time when me and Jenny alone. Maybe the city manager did when we had the discussion. I cannot remember that. I'm 100%, just me and Jenny was sitting there to discuss the number and the final slide. No other people. Thank you.
Jenny, was I in your office after we had talked at one of the presentations and questioned you about the affordable housing dollars and it wasn't on the budget?
Yeah, I had questions from two different people as well, yeah.
So I guess the question is, city manager, if I may indulge, do we ask if for support if we move on with the budget tonight? Would that be the next step?
Sorry, I don't understand what you're asking.
Based on Councillor Ellsworth's opinions and a couple of the other councillors, can we still proceed with this or?
Yeah, my understanding is you can still proceed.
Okay.
Council had given permission for that money to be brought in, whether it was in the PowerPoint or not at the time. And the numbers are continually being updated by the city administration. So throughout the budget process, as numbers change, they're being updated.
Point of order, Your Honor. He said council approved. I had no say in that approval. So it's not all council that approved.
I'm referring to council approving us taking the money from provincial government. So I'm not sure who was there that evening, but it was approved by council that we take those 1.34 whatever dollars.
For
for
your
the
argument,
affordable housing.
it's not approved by council. You're saying it's approved by council approved. I never
That's
did
not
it.
what we're saying.
No. Well, what you're trying, I never okayed it, and I was at all, I missed one budget meeting. That's the one
This
you
wasn't
said.
at the budget meeting, sir. This
Well,
was
what
when the
said that?
government.
All those at budget meeting?
This is when the government give us the actual money and we approved it by council resolution to take the money from the government. At the last meeting.
Is there a resolution there? In the minutes?
I will have to check where the resolution is, but
You know, it's, my third budget. Can I speak now, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
It's my third budget, and I tell you, it's becoming the first. More money coming in, more money going out, wasteful things. I want to speak mostly on COVID money. You know, we've done a lot of good things, beautification, the cities, according to Mr. Grove, going to do it, this and that. But you took 460,000, putting reserves for to help pay for the roads down the road. Part of their down payment. We just needed 220,000 of that, and we wouldn't have had no taxes this year. 220,000, you're spending money, 100,000 on a community garden, 50,000 on cleanup. You couldn't take 200,000 and give to the people of Thompson to lessen the tax burden. You know, I'm totally against this. There's so much shady work done in this budget, it's unreal. Totally against it, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Next.
We could just note, worship, that the accommodation or the affordable housing grant was discussed at the March 25th meeting. It was item 2.5 on the agenda at that meeting.
Thank you.
And why wasn't it in the budget, the first presentation?
I'm not sure, sir. We all make mistakes, yes?
So the budget's in draft form until it gets approved tonight. So nothing has been approved to date. So tonight is the night that council either approves or doesn't approve. So at this meeting, if council would like to remove it, they have that option as well. Anything in the budget can be removed during this meeting as well. So nothing's been approved, it's draft until this meeting tonight.
Thank you. Great.
Thanks, Mayor Snook. Yeah, I'd just like to start by saying that some of the councilors raised some good points. Procedure, transparency, good communication are important necessities when it comes to good administration and good government, but we've spent a lot of time arguing about what I consider a pretty positive thing, which is $1.3 million come to town from the province for affordable housing. So that's just what I wanted to say with regard to that. And if I can carry on with just my thoughts on the budget. First, I'd like to thank the public and everybody that's taken time out of their schedules to come and express their opinions, opposition, or in favor. I know everybody's busy and that's difficult. I'd like to thank my fellow councilors and administration for the work that they've put in. I believe that council and administration have put Thompson in a strong position to receive what I consider generational levels of investment in infrastructure through the ISIT program. I believe those grants, the ones that we applied for, address residents' principal concerns, public safety excluded, of deteriorating roads, a more efficient delivery of water and sewer services, and a public swimming pool. If we consider the proposed $48 million water and sewer main renewal project, our end is $12.7 million. I think that it's obvious that this presents a great opportunity to multiply our investment several times, and it's an undeniable value for Thompson's residents and businesses. In addition to that, we're going to save any interest on the value of the loans that would have been necessary if we choose not to defer the $427,000 that we received from the province in COVID. So that are more savings for the taxpayers of Thompson. And there is no guarantee that we're going to receive the massive funding that would accompany ISIP approval. But I also think there's no guarantee that these programs are going to last. And in light of our federal government spending through the pandemic, I believe our best option is to be ready now. It's difficult to increase taxes for certain, especially given the hardships of this past year. It's not an enjoyable thing to do at any time. But I think we have proceeded in a manner that is manageable to households when you consider the breakdown of $6 to $10 a month, depending on the value of your property. In time, if we do receive any of the 3 ISIP grants, and we've seen tens of millions of dollars flow into Thompson from Winnipeg and Ottawa, I think we'll be able to look back and say that we made the right decision by deferring that money now instead of a tax break. The budget isn't perfect by any means, but it does position us to invest significantly in the critical infrastructure our community desperately needs, and therefore it does have my support.
Thank you. Anyone else for Councilor Thompson?
Yeah, I thought I would save my comment. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I thought I'd save my comments for later. I think I'll get some of them out here now. I feel bad for some of my colleagues here today and somewhat responsible for some of the heat some of my fellow councilors are taking. I want to come out and say that I actually proposed a tax increase very, very against what, my normal stance is with respect to taking on infrastructure, taking on costs. But let it be known to everyone in the room and everyone in the public that I came up with the idea of doing that. The reason being is, and just to reiterate what Councillor McMurdo has said, is we do have some real opportunities here in the future with the ISIP grant. He characterized that as generational, and I would agree. It's probably a level that we will never see in our lifetimes. And to not try to divest money, as much money as we possibly can, to road improvement and waterworks improvement, sewer main improvements, that work is critical infrastructure. In that thought alone, I supported a tax increase. As everyone on council and the public who takes an interest knows, I voted against the budget last time around, and I'd like to say why that is, given that I proposed a tax increase. I can't even tell you, I can't even talk about one of the largest components of this budget. As it stands today, there are legal barriers to having that conversation. I'm not comfortable being in that position as someone responsible for city expenditures. This file is the majority file of our expenditures, and I'm not allowed to talk about it. I find that very difficult, and for that reason, among many, many, many others, I can't support the budget. That said, I'm not entirely happy with the company I keep on this vote today. I feel like a little bit embarrassed to be on that side, and I wanted to make it clear that when it came to tax increases, I did so I recommended we do that based on the opportunity that we have. Still feel strongly about that today, only in that we have been successful at reducing costs elsewhere, and I believe these are expenditures we need to incur in order to do that once in a lifetime work that I'm sure no one would disagree with doing. The roads in this community are in bad shape. The water situation in this community is bad, as we all know, from water breaks, and we need that infrastructure updated. So I'm glad to be able to set the record straight on there and take whatever heat comes from that. But unfortunately, I can't support the budget for one of the reasons that I mentioned. I'll talk more about it in my next opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Deputy Mayor?
I'm not going to speak on this. I just want to ask for a recordable because I have a statement to make when it's come to the second reading of the levy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Quick comment.
No, we're going to everybody first get as we said at the beginning. Kathy or Brian? Kathy?
I'm reserving my budget comments to the third reading. Thank you, Mayor Smith.
Brian, any comments at this time?
I'll save mine for later as well, but yeah, I'm in support of the budget. There's things we have to prepare for, and I think that's very important. Thanks.
I'm actually going to make my comments now. They will still be standing as after the next hearings, but I just have worked on this for a couple days and very serious about this budget and about all our councillors and how the hope is not to divide us, and we'll carry on after. And I'm sorry I have to read it because I get pretty emotional and I could get lost on the way here. So when I was elected, I made no specific promises. If you look at my campaign brochure, I said I would work with council and administration and listen to our citizens to do what would benefit our great city. And we are on an amazing journey. We have accomplished a few major hits and are on track to continue the journey. The week after we were elected, the transit system contract ended. It has taken us over 2 years, but with due diligence, provincial and federal partners, we rolled out 2 brand new buses last week. They're still tweaking the routes, and that will be a work in progress because COVID has altered the patterns of our students and citizens. There will be savings realized right away due to the fuel savings and warranties on new vehicles. We also had a boil water advisory for the first time in decades right after we took. It also happened to a couple other communities and at the same time, and we never did get our provincial review that we asked of the test between us and Dauphin. It was handled very professionally by our staff and administration and with due diligence, but it also led us to prepare for future proactivity rather than reactivity. We have upgraded components in the water treatment plant and in this budget, and the backup generator is going to be installed. We were able to work with the province at the time to release us from the transfer fee, which was a huge saving to our community. The monumentous task of the wastewater treatment plant, which was challenged to the city in 2010 due to environmental regulations, became our project, a $36 million project, of which we needed $12 million for our share. Let's talk the Norplex pool. Over previous years, and maybe the odd decade, if there was a budget cut to be made, the pool seemed to be an easy target. Even in my last term as councillor, I'm not proud to say that I likely voted to cut dollars from the pool budget, as it was important, but maybe not as important as paving that extra intersection. We would make it up for sure the next year. Well, we see how that worked. Then we got the ask, our first year of council, for $700,000. I remember asking if this is what it was going to take to make it up to upgrade. The answer was that that's what it was going to cost us to keep the doors open for the time being. We as council instructed our administration to get us a true picture. There is no $3 million fix, or we would have gone that route. I, for one, had hoped we would be closer to our goal. We have the location down, we have the plans that are just about shovel ready, and we have a great pool committee, as we heard tonight, that are already raising funds. Yes, Mr. Champagne and a few others, I have heard you, your concerns that we don't need a pool. But again, these voices are among the minority of those that have voiced their opinions and say Thompson needs a pool. We are on track to have a pool for our community without overburdening the taxpayers. The new liquor store was completed, and we faced the wrath of the community. This was planned long before I was even on council or our term. And when our citizens were asked for their input years before, Wayne Hall and I were the only two that spoke up out of 4 that attended the public hearing to voice concerns. Now we are reactively dealing with the fallout. That brings me to our downtown. The task required major commitment from partners, local, regional, provincial, and federal. After over 2,200 of you filled out a survey, there has been a working group led by CKSA strategizing on next moves. This also was funded by the provincial government. The community wellness and safety strategy will be going before council in the next few weeks and then shared with the public. Part of the plan is the sobering center, of which the city will take over the previous UCN campus. The city is only the catalyst for this project to get it up and running. The additional buildings on this campus give us the ability to work with partners for projects pertaining to transitional housing, supportive housing, employment, life skills, family reintegration, to name a few options, and it will be not at the taxpayers' expense. The city has also received the $1.3 million from the province to fund or partner with affordable housing projects in our community. Another bee in my bonnet has always been the city portion of the RCMP cost. There is no doubt we need the support and commitment of the RCMP in our city. Communities of our size in Manitoba have an average of 15 to 17 compared to our 38 plus rural detachment. No doubt our caseload here requires it, but we are a community of 13,678, and we should not be responsible for more than 20 members. I figure being a mining town, we need a few extra. We asked the RCMP for a complete report of activity out of our unit, and I was informed late Friday that this is completed. And council and us will be starting discussions in the next few weeks to see how and where we can make our detachment more affordable to our city while maintaining an expected level of service. We need to be able to serve our catchment area of 55,000. This requires communication and commitment with higher levels of government, and it does give us a chance to work with our partners to see what other services and supports that we can take the burden off of the RCMP. In response to the concerns and with the statistics of the RCMP, we approached the province for help with youth exploitation and crime. They responded with money for street reach. RCMP stats prove that this has been beneficial to Thompson. Also, dollars and local commitment for restorative justice has been invaluable to our city. The province also committed $10 million to upgrade our courthouse and system. We have just asked for them to update us on how the progress. On to our streets and water breaks. Our city was built in the 60s with the mindset that it was a mining city and should last about 10 years. So a few corners were cut, and in that decade even, iron pipes that were used for our infrastructure were flawed. But here we are 60 years later and paying the price for being built on muskeg and swamp with inadequate material. We have done several projects on water and wastewater since we have had our council. A couple of years ago, Hartman Gill came to us and said that we should submit for ICIP projects. He was instructed to lay out what was critical. At this time, we had preliminary, so far, this time we've had preliminary commitment for 2 multi-year, multi-million-dollar projects, which is as far as we can say right now. Are they guaranteed? No. But if they are, we need to be ready for them. This would be a once-in-a-lifetime project, and again, a savings because of proactiveness. We replaced major pieces of equipment over the last 2.5 years, the TRCC, Public Works, and Waste Disposal grounds. Also this year, we will receive double the federal gas tax, which is at 1.4 million rather than 700,000, and that will go to infrastructure and cannot be used as part of the matching grants. Sorry, folks. The Miles Hart Bridge is going to undergo major reconstruction. It was to actually start in June of this year and is a 2-season project from June till October were the years. But we just got notified that due to the fact that Kiosk has some major oversized equipment to bring out, they will not be starting it till late fall of this year. Then again, there's absolutely no city dollars attached to that. Council administration are committed to asset management, which will evaluate and provide the city and future councils, future administration, direction and management of our infrastructure, including roads, buildings, maintenance, replacement, efficiencies, as well as the province is providing dollars and our city budget committed dollars this year to an outside review of our city operations from top to bottom. The TRCC has been challenged this last year with COVID. Our administration and staff worked very hard to keep staff working in existing placements. Sorry about that. And existing placements. Now, these placements weren't all within the TRCC. We had work projects in the public works that they had done. But we were able to, we laid off a few staff, but we were able to keep people working and have their families supported. The Thompson Community Development Corporation has been revived by council, and our economic development contractor has secured grants for the startup funding. Formal rollout with community board members will be happening very shortly. The city, as of March 31st, had over $3.3 million in building permits alone, compared to 1.4 at the same time last year. We have Ford starting construction on their new dealership in the next short period. Dairy Queen looks like it's slating to have the work being done there. We've also got housing projects by local agencies and entrepreneurs and other requests for land. Our voices may not have been heard for a few years, but this council, leaving its mark and leading the way to awaited initiatives and needs. As with the buses falling into place, many of our projects are falling in. It all just takes time now. So why am I in support of a 2% increase? We have managed to keep our tax increases in this neighborhood for our council time. This shows commitment on behalf of our community when we approach the various levels of governments with request for funding. What I have shown above was deliverables in excess of $24 million for the wastewater treatment plant, $10 million for the courthouse, and over $12 million in the other endeavors that I have mentioned. I have not included the proposed projects that we may need the matching dollars for, so as we cannot talk about them yet, but there would be more. But to be perfectly truthful, if the ones that are looking out for everybody else are the most opposed, I have talked to many that truly may have reason that they can't afford the $60 to $100 in their tax increase this year. But they're the ones that are willing to make what they call a small sacrifice for the betterment of the city. Thank you for your time. Sorry if it was a bit long.
9.5 minutes.
So, Mayor, with all that money coming in, what you were just saying, this council couldn't find $216,000 to give the people of Thompson a tax break. All this money coming in, and like the 12 million that you said we're gonna need for a matching grant, well, take 2 years of water bills. That's enough. 2 years of water coming in, it's enough to cover that, right? And here you are, still putting 2% on people who cannot afford it. I'm talking about people like myself, I can afford it. I'm talking to people that whose rent is gonna go up $60 a month. You're paying $1,200 now, it's gonna go up $60 a month. That's the people I'm talking about, and they're the people that you're taking money out of their pockets just to satisfy this man. Thank you very much.
Okay, anybody else? Okay. So for resolution 2021-070, call for the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor, did you ask for?
Yes, please.
Okay, recorded vote. Voting in favor, we got Councillor McMurdo, Councillor Valentino, Mayor Spook, Councillor Prue, and Councillor Lundmark. Opposed? We have Councillor Fountain, Deputy Mayor Wong, Councillor Ellsworth, and Councillor Colbert. Carried. Uh, 9.2 is a resolution to approve the accommodation for tax, the accommodation tax distribution. Resolution 2021-071, moved by Councillor Valentino, seconded by Councillor Crew. Whereas the 1952-2017, pardon me, was amended so that council will allocate percentage of revenue to each fund through a resolution on an annual basis for the said year. And whereas through budget deliberations, council has determined the 2021 allocations. Now therefore be it resolved that the tax collected under subsection 3.1 remitted to the tax collector under subsection 5.2 and not refunded under section 6 is to be deposited appropriately into the according funds. Infrastructure Reserve Fund, 80%, Public Safety Initiatives Reserve Fund, 20%. Go to administration.
Only to note that this is a yearly resolution that comes out of the budget process. So that council's allocating those dollars as they come in from the accommodation tax into the appropriate reserves for use by council.
Go to Councillor Valentino.
Similar to City Manager McGinnis, this is an annual resolution, and it was council's direction on where the percentage of the allocations would go from the accommodation tax. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone further? Call for the question. All those in favor?
Brian.
Brian.
Aye.
Carried. Nine point is a resolution to approve the tabulation of prices for the purchase of an inflatable boat for the fire department. Resolution 2021-072, moved by Councillor Prue, seconded by Councillor Ellsworth. Be it resolved that council approve the recommendation of the purchasing agent to award the purchase of an inflatable boat to Gas Hopper Inc. for their tendered price of $34,593.83 plus applicable taxes as per tender file number 19621. Administration? Jenny?
So the budget for this amount was $60,000. It's coming forward to council because there was only one vendor that responded to the quote. When this item was reviewed at the Finance or Legislative and Finance Committee, the committee members requested that the trade-in be removed from the tender. So the tender is to award the vote without the trade-in.
Thank you. Vote Councillor Crowe. Other councillors, any comments? Deputy Mayor Wong?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just for the public knowledge, how's the condition of this this boat right now that we decide to get a new one?
The current boat,
Yeah,
I believe, has some small holes in it, and the department didn't think it was reliable for water rescue use, which is what was brought forward to budget with council.
Madam.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand the importance to buy the new one because of the leaking. So, but it's also bringing me a concern about, are we continue using the old boat until the new one arrives? Which is maybe putting our staff in risk for the longest time, if that is the case.
No, as we told council last year, we ordered a boat from Hydro. So Manitoba's Hydro boat was used last year. They requested it back. I don't believe they have the boat out yet, but I can find out what they're using now. It could possibly be a Hydro borrow or rental, I'm not sure.
Thank you.
Thank you for the piece of information. At least I know that the administration make arrangement to safeguard the staff that were working for water rescue if they need. Thank you.
I do believe we were also maybe told that the motor was blown at the meeting. Am I right at the last meeting? Councillor Coburn?
Did you say that we were budgeted $60,000 for this?
That's correct.
And this costing us 34?
Correct.
Where's the other 25 going?
Like all these expenditures, it goes back to the reserve.
So anything that we budget and we don't carry the budget, all goes to reserve instead of taxing. The plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Fountain, was your hand up?
No.
Okay, I thought I saw.
I'm
somebody
sorry,
else.
I can clarify that. So when we tender, we're going for the best value, dollar for value. So getting a boat for $30,000 better for the taxpayer than buying a boat for $60,000, as long as it meets the same requirement. So in a way, we've saved the council money by not buying a $60,000 boat.
Yes, but the question is what do you do with the leftover money? I'm not saying I always get a better price and the boat is just good, go for it, but the leftover money, we budget $60,000 and you know right away, we're not gonna pay 60,000. The rest is gonna go into reserve.
Jenny?
So the $60,000 that was budgeted for this item was from the public safety reserve. So the money is existing in the public safety reserve and can be only used for the intended purpose of that reserve. So it can't go back to the tax, you can't use it to reduce taxes. It just stays in the reserve. It doesn't get used in future projects. It can meet the requirement of the reserve, which is public safety within the city.
Councillor Fountain?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I actually did have my hand up. I forgot. Sorry. I just want to say that this is needed safety equipment for our fire department. Anyone familiar with legislation with respect to workplace health and safety knows that supervisors are responsible for the safety and safe operation of equipment by the people underneath them. That said, I knowing what we know today, I can't help but support this, given that it's necessary and a need to ensure the safety of our own fire services crew. So glad to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ellsworth?
It's been someone in my past life that was very much involved in safety and the purchase of safety equipment, whether it be a 60-minute apparatus or in this case a boat. I agree with Councillor Fountain. You put down River that this piece of equipment is crucial. It's absolutely crucial. And we would not want them going out to try to rescue someone and lose their own lives. You gotta think inside the box, because that's exactly what could happen if you're talking about the river, just as an example. So we put a boat out in that water and we knowingly know, and I know you haven't done that, Anthony, but if you knowingly know it's leaking or got issues with it, there's no way in your right mind you would do that. So absolutely, I will support the resolution because it's the right thing to do. And regardless of whether it deserves or not, it's always good to save money if we can possibly do it without lowering the quality of the product. So thank you.
Thank you. Can anyone see if Brian has his hand up? No. Anybody else? Okay, call for the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried unanimously. Okay, 9.4 is a resolution to approve the tabulation of prices for the purchase of polymer required for the wastewater treatment plant. Resolution 2021-073, moved by Councillor McMurdo. Sorry. Seconded by Councillor Colburn. Be it resolved that council approve the recommendation of the purchasing agent and award the purchase of polymer for wastewater treatment plant to Clear Tech Industries for the first year with the estimated price of $65,650 with additional taxes, and award the second year to Brentag Canada Incorporated with the estimated price of $1,200 with additional taxes. The total estimated financial implication for 2 years will be $135,850 with additional taxes as per tender file number 10921. Board of Administration?
Sure, yeah, this is a necessary chemical for running the wastewater treatment plant. It helps clarify the water. And the tender has been split up so that the vendors knew when they were bidding that 1 year might be awarded to one company, one might be awarded to another company. So administration is recommending for the ones with the best dollar value for the use of the wastewater plant. And I believe both products have been used in the plant in the past. So there's a track record of them working in the plant process.
Thank you. Councillor McMurdo, any comment?
Yeah, just as Anthony said, it seems like obviously a necessary component to run the wastewater treatment plant. I did have a concern about the fact that it was going to come from 2 different suppliers, but it was recorded in the memo, and Anthony just said that the products will be compatible, so that shouldn't be an issue.
Any other councillors comments? Deputy Mayor Wong?
I've got a comment.
I'll come to you next, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Lundmark, you may go ahead.
Yeah, I was concerned about this as well because it's 2 different products. They both been used in the wastewater treatment plant during the commissioning. However, this might be a good experiment as well. Just different chemicals work a little different, and we'll see over a year's time with these contracts which one is actually more efficient. And that would help our wastewater treatment plant operators. They'll know after a year of using each product which is most efficient, and will help us in further budgeting. Thanks.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Wong?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, last year we used Brentag Canada Inc. At that time, using for $60,790. So there's 2 questions I have to ask. As a city, do we have able to question why the jump, there's sometimes more than 5% increase? And secondly, do we have a number of volume that we treat the water? So does that go based on the volume that we use to treat the wastewater? Or is it the one chemical that doesn't matter how much we use, we treat it, we continue spend, look like the pattern is like the number is fixed. We just go by percentage every year up. So is there any way we can find out, or is there any way we can leverage that kind of expenses if we could?
So on your second question, yes, the numbers that are used for tendering purposes are average numbers or projected numbers, which is probably why they stay the same every year. What's actually used in the plant, but that's why it says it's up to this amount. What's actually used in the plant is fine-tuned by the operator. So the operator is gonna see, and based on the temperature of the water, the season and the effluent or the influent characteristics would be. That changes all. Change, it's market on tender, and the company can put forward whatever they like. So that's why some of the ones were eliminated, because they were so much higher.
So just understand what you just explained. So is that mean that price could be less than what we consume, or it doesn't matter we use less or more? That is the amount they're going to bill us.
We're paying what our usage is, right, Jenny? Yeah, so they're giving us a unit cost that we can bill them at, or that they will bill us at as we order it.
And if it goes over this cost here, then they would have to come back to council to get further
That's my understanding.
For-
We have to come back to
for,
council
approval
or purchase
for-
one-off.
extra spending. But up until this cost, they're okay.
Thanks for the clarification.
Okay, anybody else? Open the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you. Next, we'll go to 10.1. The second reading of bylaw 2011-2021. Moved by Deputy Mayor Wong, seconded by Councilor Ellsworth. Be it resolved that bylaw 2011-2021 being the levy bylaw of the city of Thompson for the year 2021 be given second reading as amended. Administration?
Nothing further to what was said earlier.
Nothing further.
We'll go to Deputy Mayor Wong next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Let me begin to say this. Thank you to Council Fountain, Ellsworth, and Colvin for the thoughtful decision on this budget. I believe it was history made in Thompson for the opposition to this budget. It was a historical of attendance, also historical spoke against it, and I should say 100% that spoke. I hope Madam Mayor and my colleagues will hold the same standard of the new pool decision. It was a 12 people spoke at that meeting and 2 against it, and yet majority of my colleagues are willing to spend multi-million dollars to build a new pool for 10 people wishes. I think we should listen to the taxpayer for the budget as well. This is my 7th budget, and I have been voted against 6 consecutive years of them. And I don't cast my vote lightly. Here are the reasons. 2014, the budget was 27.6 million, and Valley approximately has 1,200 union workers working. In 2021 budget is going to be 42 million, and Valley maybe have about 500 unions workers working. The point I'm trying to make is the city spending more than we can afford. The city used to get 6 million a year for the GIL plus 600,000 for infrastructure per year. Today, the city is only getting 3 million a year for the last few years, and it will come to the end by this year. God knows what Valley is going to offer this time. What have the city done to prepare for the downfall? Answer is nothing. ICIP fund, which is going to fund the city 48 million for the wastewater and sewer renewal project, and 40 million to road renewal project. And the city portion is about 20 million and projected for 7 years to complete. Sounds like a pretty good deal, right? Mathematically, it's about 2.86 million per year, which is doable. But here's my concern. Good money handled by bad decision. Here are my facts. Last year, the water and sewer renewal, my colleagues approved. The project for Stuyvesant Drive was around 1.8 million. If you guys want to fact check me, the resolution is number 2020-075 for 28 houses. which was set the price for 64,000 per house. I kind of look at this, back in the day, the house was sold for $18,000. And I'm using the same amount to apply to the $48 million, which will give us about 750 houses. And it's not even quarter of the houses in Thompson will get to renew. Road renewal for Thompson Drive North, in front of the old sand store, Subway and A&W was about $1.093 million. Again, if you guys want to fact check me, resolution number 2020-094. But only on the eastbound lane, which was probably 300,000 worth of the work for a quarter of the kilometers. That means it will cost us $4 million to do a kilometer in the future. And Thompson still has 60 over 5 kilometers to do. The 40 million will only give us approximately, based on the last price that we set for the contractor, which is about 10 kilometers. The city has set the extremely expensive price for future contractor from south to gouge us. The money we can save. Last year, we were facing unprecedented pandemic. Lots of my friends lost their job and facing financial hardship. And what the city did? The city did nothing but continue budget for 11 over millions to fund the wages, which is mean now not one job be laid off or eliminated from the book. This is good example. The pool has been closed for 2 years. The city could easily save $1 million plus a year to the budget, which is equivalent to 10% for the tax. Instead of doing the right thing, my colleagues agreed to tax $440,000 plus to the reserve to fund future new pool, which is no guarantee funding. In my opinion, the no tax pool issue is a hoax. I know someone did something. Why I say that? A structural engineer in town will die to go into that building to investigate an assessment for us. Guess what? The city refused that idea. Why? To me, the city would like to know that the city would not like to know the truth. It will not fit the narrative. I'd like to touch on spending on equipment. Last year, my colleague approved to purchase $1 million compactor to the waste disposable ground, which was a wasteful spending. For the water waste that the city collected, it is overkill and will not justify for the purpose. This year budget, the city wanted to spend another $1 million plus for wheel loader, grader, and excavator. I will argue that none of my colleagues and myself has seen one maintenance report from the administration to make that decision. For the last few years, the city has been spending millions and millions of dollars to buy new equipment. Here's the question we should ask ourselves. Did we see the efficiency result? I would like to challenge any one of my colleagues who say yes to this. COVID-related fund, about $818,000. Not one single cent spent on the related to the COVID. To me, that is totally waste on the thing that will not retain or attract the real people that think Thompson is a great place to raise the family or retire here. Lastly, to me, this budget is wasteful, careless, reckless, out of reach, no accountability, and wrong timing spending. Keep dumping money to the problem is not the way to run the city. With that, I'd like to ask the recorder vote, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Next. Councilor Ellsworth.
I'm going to save both my remarks for the third reading, but I want to very briefly speak a couple things there. First of all, I'm not going to speak on any particular remark, Mayor, that you made. A lot of the stuff you talked about, we're not going to disagree on. There's a lot of good things done. And anyone that understands this budget, it's very difficult for me to vote against the budget. I've never voted against the budget. And I want to make it very clear in this council, I'm not voting against the budget because my colleagues are voting against it. I'm voting against it because I don't think it's good for the taxpayer. Let's be very clear. There's things we're going to agree to disagree on, and this is one of them. In the book, when we were trained, as counselors said, the annual budget or financial plan is one of the council's most important decisions. It's been a difficult budget process. It's a tough budget. But I feel that we didn't listen to the public and we really didn't listen to each other. We got to where we are. And the other part I want to make real quick, and this is the last for now, is I look at the role of administration, and I'm very disappointed in some things that have happened, and we discussed it during the financial plan resolution. But it says again, I quote there from books, not my quote. This is what you trained me on. It's not something I dreamed up on the weekend. It says council steers the boat and administration rolls. That's what it says. It's our job to tell the administration what to do. And you will hear me speak about that in my remarks in the third reading. I don't feel this is what has happened with the budget. I feel it's been the reverse. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
You know, somebody this week, nobody wants to speak for it. But 5 councilors there, well, 4 councilors and the mayor that want to vote for it. And they don't want to say a word yet. But, you know, I'm a 41-year resident of Thompson. And believe me, first time in my life that I thought of leaving Thompson. Because when I retire, I don't know if I can afford to live here. The taxes and things keep going up. And with this council, we ain't going nowhere. We're gonna be stuck in this rut of spending, where we should be starting trying to run this place efficiently. And any business knows, any business owner knows that if you got problems with money, you attack the 3 biggest expenses you've got. Let me tell you something, all our budget meetings, they were never mentioned. Never mentioned. Labor was mentioned, going to go up to 1.8%. Right? You know, it's silliness. It's silliness. All the dollars that the mayor spoke about, we get from the government, everybody here talks about, and you can't give the people of Thompson a little break. This will be the last time I'll speak. I won't speak in the third time. I'll return my time to Councilor Ellsworth. But one last thing, my friends. You guys are the ones who are taking responsible for this, because and I'll fight it tooth and nail to make sure that I be the one to say I voted against it. And I'll tell anybody that, right? It's just terrible, terrible. We had a chance to help the people of Thompson in the COVID relief time, and we had the money, and we wouldn't do it. Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Crew?
Just to make sure, Councilor Colbert, just for numbers, and there was no numbers given out for pay raises and union, or
Yes, it was. Was a percentage.
there's
Point
no,
of privilege, Madam Mayor. This is a legal issue that no one in this room can be talking about, period. And I hope that individual gets the same treatment I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll take it.
I hope you do.
Well, nothing.
Oh, really? Okay. We'll see.
Thank you. There was numbers mentioned that weren't.
Well, the cost of living goes up every year, Your Honor.
Point of order, point of order.
Can't talk.
That's that we've got stuff being talked about shouldn't be. You need to rule on that, shut it down and move on.
Thank you. Okay, Brian, did I hear you want to speak?
Excuse me.
Okay, I think
Please rule.
we just mentioned that.
Just, no, it's gotta come to your mouth.
Yeah. You shut the conversation down. You've got a rule.
Okay, so this conversation on that is no longer able to be set.
Thank you.
Thank you. Brian, I heard you speak. Did you want to speak or you were just commenting?
No, yeah, I was just saying we had to stop that. And yeah, I'll wait till everybody speaks about it. No need to talk about it twice. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so call for the question on resolution 2021-074 with a recorded vote as per Deputy Mayor Wong's request. All those in favor?
Aye.
Councillor Lundmark, Councillor Prue, Councillor McMurdo, Councillor Valentino. All those opposed? Councillor Coburn, Councillor Ellsworth, Deputy Mayor Wong, Councillor Fountain. Carried. Ten point two is third reading of bylaw 2011-2021. Resolution 2021-075, moved by Councillor Ellsworth, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wong. Be it resolved that bylaw 2021-2021 be given third and final reading and that it shall now pass. This is automatically a recorded vote after this. We'll go to administration. Comments? Okay, thank you. Councillor Ellsworth, as you move the resolution, you want to speak first?
Thank you. I'm not one that normally writes a speech or writes remarks. I'm usually pretty good off the cuff, but again, not unlike yourself, I thought that I would put it in writing. Good evening, Mayor and councilors. I would have hoped that this budget process and outcome would have been different. My remarks will not sit well with some of you, but it's something that I believe that I have to do. This is our third budget in this term, and I had the opportunity to present the last one in 2020. This is certainly the most difficult one for me, and I have participated in many budgets at City Hall and in other organizations. To say I'm disappointed in this year's budget would be an understatement. It is no secret to anyone in Thompson or any part of this country that the pandemic has been difficult for small and medium-sized businesses, along with the many layoffs that have occurred in our city and elsewhere. People have struggled to meet the basic needs, while many businesses will never open again despite the health regime. The provincial and federal governments have seen the need to support business and low-income families during this time. But although given COVID funding to offset costs, this city has decided to take a different path. We as a municipality received over $800,000 in funding to help alleviate expenses, the burden, I say, of businesses and taxpayers. While I agree with some of the money being allocated to different projects, I do not agree with putting over $400,000 in reserves. You will hear possibly from other council members supporting money putting in our reserves to help our infrastructure, in particular roads, water, and sewer repairs. While I do not disagree with this, my issue is that it is not what the COVID funding was meant for. We heard recently in this chamber about 1.4 million owed in water bills and millions in outstanding property tax. Yet we want to raise taxes. I suspect this will only lead to more taxpayers not affording to pay their bills to the city. We also have applied to PUB to increase utility for water and sewer. If this was not enough, we also increased the fees and fines by 2.2%. This is all happening during the worst time in our history. Unless you were born around 1918, like some of my uncles. As many of you know, I've spoken and lobbied about our crumbling infrastructure in our city. In the meantime, as I mentioned earlier, we are owed millions in water bills and property tax, and yet rather than putting a more concerted effort in collecting outstanding accounts, we raise taxes to meet our budget needs. On December the 12th, 2020, we passed resolution 2020-221 in the amount of $1,776,836, which is equivalent of 16.4%, to transfer surpluses to reserves for future use contingent upon the city operating in a net surplus for 2020. Although I supported this resolution at the time, one would think that if we only use 80% of 2020 budget, why do we need to increase taxes in 2021? Doesn't make sense. Had the city of Thompson becoming a banking institution? The end result is more and more people each year is not paying. And the burden becomes greater on the taxpayers that is paying their bills. I would have expected a more caring elected mayor and council during this difficult time. The city of Thompson continues to be #1 in crime, and we wonder why. If we have money to put in reserves for the reasons I have stated, why not put it towards reducing crime, which will in time reduce costs to the city and its taxpayer? One of our highest costs, 22%, is to law enforcement. Go figure. COVID money given to the city of Thompson was not meant to put in reserves, but to put in the hands of business and taxpayers, in my opinion. Relief means now, not later. Now, when business and people need it most, a zero budget would have been a good start. If we continue on this trend, the retirees, and it's been spoken about by retirees at the start of this meeting, and many more will not be able to afford to live in this city. We need to find more opportunities to get revenue rather than on the backs of the taxpayers who is already paying more than most communities our size. We were told time and time again that this was a council budget, but I do not feel that way myself personally. Apparently, we do not understand this at City Hall. I would appeal to my fellow councilors tonight, while the public watches us in the gallery and by Zoom, I might add, to turn this resolution down and set it back to bring back a more realistic budget in keeping with the times we are in. This week, in the last few days, we're literally completely shut down again. Restaurant owners around this table as councilors can attest to it. Laying off people in our city. How do you think they're gonna pay their water bills and their tax bills after over a year of this? Don't see it. The 1.4 will be a lot higher. If there was ever an opportunity to try and keep people in our city amid rising costs and downturn, it was this year. I'm disappointed in this resolution. And in good conscience, I cannot vote in favor. The taxpayers have trusted me, and I talked to many of them when I was campaigning to represent them. And let me tell you tonight, I'm opposing this resolution because of my commitment to the people that put me in the chair that I sit tonight. And I say to you that is supporting it, you ought to be listening to the public. Someone mentioned it already. They will get the vote again. And we are not helping by doing what we're doing, 2%. The calculation I've been told for every percent that we have is $108,000, which is $216,000, as someone already mentioned. Are you gonna tell me, fellow councilors, that we could not fund $216,000 to help our people? We still would have did all the great things we talked about. There is, and I'll finish this on this note for now, Mayor Smoot. There's a lot of good things in the budget. We're not against everything that we've talked about. We're against you taking money that was given to you, excuse me, by the government, for the people, for this municipality, and you only had to take, again, $216,000 out of how much? Out of $818. Guess what? You still had $602,000. Never mind. And I think someone from the gallery mentioned this. We also had a reduction from the school board. So it's more than 2%. More than 2%. So even if you had kept it at zero, the city would have still had more money coming in because of the school board reduction. Thank you for right now.
Thank you, sir. Next.
Okay, I don't know what Brian's doing there.
Brian, got your hand up?
Sure. I have to speak for that 2% and for, as Councillor Ellsworth said, and Councillor Fountain has alluded to before, and Councillor McMurdo, looking at the future and the amount of money that we've applied for, and preparing for those dollars, and knowing with COVID that the federal and provincial governments are looking at stimulating our economy once this slows down and we can see each other again. The money that we applied for, we can't lose. It's $5 for every dollar that our citizens will be taxed. We're looking at putting these reserves away to ensure that we don't lose those monies that we're applying for and that we're hoping to get. And then planning those ahead, that means we won't have to borrow as much to cover our shares. I think it's very important that, you know what, the interest that we'd get on debenturing will be a percentage just on those funds and what we get this year. I hope our citizens realize that, and I hope that I wish I could make it more clear what we're planning. And there's other things in the budget for beautification, things that people that I've spoken to are concerned about. We've added more street sweeping. We use some of those COVID dollars for this small low-hanging fruit, as Councillor Ellsworth and others of us say, low-hanging fruit. We need to do some small, significant things for our residents. But looking around at other cities in our province and other cities in our country that are increasing their taxes as well to ensure that they can use federal and provincial dollars that are coming to help us with COVID. It's I think a necessary tweak this year that will help us in the long run. And I hope that people understand that when that comes. I'm for this. It's painful, but I'm looking forward to the changes and the infrastructure changes that we're trying to do will affect us in the future by reducing O&M costs if those things are done and done properly the way we're planning. It's been a fair amount of planning here to get to this point, and we don't want to drop the ball now. Thanks. And I'll be in favor of it.
Thank you. Next. Councillor Valentino.
Thank you, Mayor Smook. I will always reserve my comments to the third reading of the bylaw. So it wasn't that I wasn't speaking before. I did also have a prepared written thing just so I don't forget any of my points. But I speak a lot about what I feel as a counselor and my personal remarks here. I think that as a counselor, you need to be working to build a strong and sustainable community, and sustainable being the key word. However, I do appreciate the generational words of Councillor McMurdo and Councillor Fountain, and I did support Councillor Fountain right away with the 2% increase at the budget meetings, as I feel that it was a good way for us to start looking forward. I believe that this budget has tax dollars to fund infrastructure, and that will start to ensure the sustainability for us to have a strong community that Thompson needs moving forward. And I think that the budget sometimes has just been about this COVID budget. And I think there's some key elements and points that we haven't spoke about. And I think a key element to being sustainable is an important point from the province by moving the provincial reassessment of properties back a year. And they're using that as a recovery measure for municipalities that have been financially hit by COVID-19. And I think that that's important for us to realize. It's important for this budget, and it's important for us for next year's budget. As we know now, the tax dollars coming in from properties. It is the 2023 reassessment year that could see the city of Thompson tax revenue decrease or increase. So my view is this budget and next year's should provide value for taxes including the crucial plan for infrastructure rehabilitation that we put into place. I've done some research over the last couple of weeks because I'm a numbers person and I want to make sure that we're on the right path and what other people are doing and that we're just not doing stuff for the city of Thompson because we're just the city of Thompson. So I've looked at financial plans throughout Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and BC, and I was surprised to see the high property tax increases taking place in Western Canada. Some of them, including Winnipeg at 2.3, the PAW was difficult to understand, 1.6 to 3.2. Carmen was 100 to 200 a year per taxpayer. Selkirk, I loved how they provided their public, it said a moderate 1.5%. Winkler was 4.85. Morden was 1.75 with special levies for waste and recycling. We talk about our special levy in the city of Thompson like we're the only ones that have it. Look at other municipalities, everybody has it for different reasons and most of all for policing lately. Steinbach is $44 a year with 2.5% garbage fee and land fee increases. Regina's 2.34, Saskatoon 3.87. BC has 5-year plans they have to present to the premier and to the minister. Prince George BC is 1.89 and Terrace BC, which surprised me because they're very much like us, is coming in at 6% this year. This budget is due May 15th to the province. Last year, the premier gave a 30-day extension, not this year. We have been in contact as a group for 30.5 hours, and we've listened to each other to get to where we are today. I believe that strategic public infrastructure spending that we put in place is a sound investment for generations that leads to long-lasting economic and social benefits for the citizens of this town. This budget represents that as our infrastructure is crumbling. It is awful. We all around this table drive the same roads as the rest of the people in the city and we dodge the same potholes. It's awful. As the infrastructure projects start to happen, water and roads, it should have a long-term reduction in our operating costs for maintenance and repairs, including the utility portion of our budget. And that has to be part of our overall plan when we start looking at budgeting as councillors. Talking about public safety and the well-being of our citizens, it was a huge topic when we first got elected, and it is a priority for this council and for myself. It is also a priority within our province for many municipalities with rising police costs. We're fortunate right now to have the pilot project for the creation that Mayor Smoot talked about for the Community Safety and Wellbeing Advisory Committee. We're waiting now for these recommendations to come. As those recommendations get put into place, we should see another long-term reduction in our public safety costs. Right now, $843 of your property tax bill is going to those 38 arson and P officers, the 24 firefighters, the CSOs, animal control and building bylaw officers. But it's a part of our overall plan now moving forward that we can reduce the public safety costs in that operating part of the budget. Let's talk about the money. Let's talk about my fellow councillors talking about having matching dollars. I'm not going to reiterate that because it's a no-brainer. You can't pass up somebody giving you $3 to $5 on your dollar. When you look at our financial plan and you read the financial plan, phase 1 under expenditures clearly shows that our operating was 96% of our budget last year. 96% was spent. The variances in the 4% in our financial plan are identified in the reduced recreation revenue, more people off work because of sick, compassionate, self-isolation, and schools closed. On the flip side of that, when you read our financial plan, our ambulance was actually at 300,000 more. And when we first met during COVID, we were under the impression that our ambulance revenue would be less due to COVID, due to less medevacs, due to outlying communities being under lockdown. As that lessened, we were able to get the revenue back up. When you look through our financial plan, you will see that our landfill was $600,000 over, but that has no impact to taxes. But it's important to note that that goes to landfill reserve and funds our equipment. So when we use reserve money to fund equipment, we're borrowing less money, as Councillor Lundmark just said. It means we pay less interest. It means we pay no debenture payment. It means less of a tax impact to our taxpayers. For example, our fire truck. We only have to pay for half of the fire truck because we are able to use already existing dollars. So we're not borrowing more money that we would cost to our taxpayers the interest. Good financial municipal planning is clear that one-time revenue should not be used to fund 1 year of operating dollars. The good financial planning would have been to put the COVID money direct to debt. That's what should have happened, and it never did. So we have this COVID dollars that we've used to benefit our community, to use it to create a long-term infrastructure plan, which I think is great moving forward. When we talk about our property tax bills, we should also talk about that the average home last year saw a decrease when you got your property tax bill. It's funny we don't ever mention that because that happened with the average home. And we actually did a study within council with our roll numbers and where we live to see. So for myself, I live in Westwood. So the 2% tax increase, I will still be paying less than my 2019 property tax bill. I think that's important to note for our taxpayers to understand that. When we talk about the special levy, and I mentioned that earlier, the special levy of $62.61. My house insurance happens to be up, so I was looking through it all. I have a $1,000 deductible. So I'm good with paying the $62.61 because I would have to pay $1,000 out of my pocket for this to fix the water break. Hopefully with our utility and these projects going forward, that is something that we can look to reduce to our taxpayers, part of the overall planning. So in closing, as a counselor, I feel that I represent everyone in this city, and I represent the ones who no doubt are struggling and the businesses that are struggling. But I also represent the ones who want decisions made for a future in this city and for the ones that are still working and working overtime and still have the ability to pay their bills. I support this budget. I see the job ads over the past month in the Citizen, and I brought them here. There's 47 job ads in the last month. There are employers that cannot hire people. So there is work here. This city is open for business. I support the community fundraising for a pool in the future. I've seen firsthand the businesses supporting at the Winter Wonderland and just giving money at over $50,000 from the business community. I see the building permits that were presented to council last week at Development Review. 42 construction permits so far in 2021 for a value of 4.1 million. That's crazy good. 17 last year to date at 1.9. I talked to 2 landlords that recently have numerous requests for commercial rent. I see our sale of homes at a certain value are selling. I see professionals that are moving and buying homes in our city. Recently, 2 teachers, 2 heavy-duty mechanics, a physiotherapist, and a chartered accountant. I see our nursing program at UCN, the RN Bachelor of Nursing program, going to employ 11 professionals this fall in our city. I see a future for this city, and I am excited to plan for it. And I'm also very excited to move forward with this budget. Thank you, Mayor Smoot.
Thank you. Next. Councilor McMurdo.
Thank you, Mayor Smoot. I already spoke, so just a couple points that I wanted to make. Deputy Mayor Wong had mentioned that the cost per house was $64,000 on Staghorn for the water main renewal. And I'd just like to say that you can achieve economy by increasing the scale of a project. So that's what this does. If you have a massive project, your price per unit will go down. I've heard it said a number of times in the year that a pool is not wanted by the citizens of this, the residents of this community. And I can say personally that I've had 2 friends relocate from town in the last couple of months, and the lack of a community pool played no small role in it. As Brian had alluded to, other municipalities in Cap as well have increased taxes this year, probably to take advantage of ISID funding should it come their way, the same manner we are. And while we could turn over the 200K, it would be certainly show our sympathy to the citizens of Thompson for the struggles that they went through this year, and it would be politically expedient. But we need to remember we'd more than likely be asking for it back next year, for the year after, and then some. So I'm not on a fixed income, and obviously, like I heard a resident in last, like the retirees speak, how increases obviously affect the bottom line when you're a retiree trying to stay in Thompson. But for the people of my generation that want to stay here and have the opportunity to die here, I think we need that now. So thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Pruitt?
Yeah, so that's some really good comments going around on both sides. I definitely understand we were planning to be on zero as the goal. But once you get an opportunity as good as this, that is, like you said, intergenerational, it's huge. The earlier we start planning, the better. And on my side of things, I represent people who voted for me, and I have not gotten any complaints or people wanting to move because of their tax bill being high. Now, I'm not saying we want to increase them for the heck of it, but it's always has to do with crime and the aesthetics and the feeling in the city. And we finally have an opportunity to fix this. Yes, it's all at once, which is somewhat of a burden. You gotta be careful what you ask for sometimes, but this is a good problem. We have so many good projects happening that we do need to front some money for, and it's for going towards a good cause and for the longevity of the city. And to go to the 200,000, it doesn't sound like lots on a $40 million budget. I get that, but it goes two ways. If we just spent 200,000 extra on a grader, that wouldn't go too well either. So 200,000 is still money we need. It's still a lot of money. So collectively, if the taxpayers are on average, I think it said $72 on the slides, it's not too much of an impact to the average home, where collectively as a city, we get 200,000, but it benefits us fivefold, threefold. So for that, as hard it is to increase the taxes, I still have to be in favor of it. And again, my biggest point is to drive the point that the city is not made up of just taxpayers. It's made up of children. It's made up of people who pay rent. It's people who come visit, and we need to be able to keep them happy, entertain, and attract them. So I want to make sure that everyone gets the biggest bang for their buck, and with the COVID money getting spent that way, I'm okay with it. I'm in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Over?
Thank you, Mayor. Let me tell you, democracy is a great thing. You get to debate, and at the end of the day, we'll still be a council on its own. I wonder what we're going to do with all the properties when Jenny Prince brings it to us in a year's time or 2 years' time because people didn't pay their taxes and we start bringing them in. You'll find out how much money you save because and not just over $200,000 we're talking about. It's the whole thing with the pandemic, the many people that's laid off. And Council Crew, you're right, it's made up of all people, including the visitors, but the base is your taxpayer. Don't forget that. Time spent as a counselor, I'm personally, and let's be very clear, I'm personally vested in this. I didn't have to be a city councilor. I felt when I ran that I needed to give something back, although I had over 30 years in my previous employer, serving this community for many years. And you enjoy not only my work, but many like me, the great pensions and benefits that we negotiated. They were top end jobs. So you want to put it in perspective. I retired June the 1st, coming up in 3 years. Someone alluded to it earlier. These are facts. I had over 1,200 membership. I don't know the exact numbers, but I would suggest that Councilor Wong, I believe you mentioned it, it's probably about 500 hourly. I'm talking about hourly workers. You want to talk about these are high-end jobs. Gone. This company up there have laid off a lot of people in the last 3 years. That's their business, but it's affected the community. We went from a $6 million grant to a $3 million. I wasn't on council, so I'm not about to criticize, but that's a huge blow to the community. I said money is not guaranteed. I never spend a dime. It's not in my bank account. I don't spend the money on a promise. I used to have members that used to spend money because they thought we might get a bonus. That was foolhardy thing to do. You don't spend money you don't have. Good to plan. Don't disagree with the comments. I think it's great. Councilor Valentina made some good comments, and then I agree full-heartedly with. But you're forgetting the bigger picture. You're forgetting the bigger picture. It is about COVID. It is about the 200,000. We ought to be ashamed of ourselves to do what we're doing. And I'm going to tell you now, The major employer, I'm not sure if it's still major, that's set on that hill, their pensioners makes more than the average, above the average in this town. So you better consider that when retirees are starting leaving, these are not your $10, $12, $15 jobs. I know what they get because I happen to negotiate it. These are huge dollars that will leave this city. And what will you be left with? That's for you to decide. Funny, no one mentioned Bill 71 that was just tabled by the government. See the nice $700 you get for property tax? It's gonna be gone. I went and did some inquiries. You'll see that gone off your bill. What does that equate for taxes? So you wanna talk about how much the taxpayers are hurting there? Do your own work. I didn't hear anyone talking about the different cities that we went to. Did they have a big turn down and layoffs from major employers like we did? Some of them might have. I got a feeling not 500 miles north of Winnipeg that they didn't. We live in some terrible, terrible conditions up here and we love it. I don't know why, but we do. But is that a cost? And unlike some of you, I can afford to pay the taxes where I'm to, but I'm not saying you can't afford where you are. This is my point. I've never seen a decrease in my taxes, and that's okay. I'm okay with that because I can afford it. But you're forgetting about the people that can't. The people that got laid off during this over a year pandemic that will have to forfeit their homes. There's not enough money coming in. We were given money. And yes, it could have been used in many, many ways. No doubt about it in the budget process. So here's my last say on this resolution to my fellow councilors. I said it a little earlier. We will still be fellow councilors when this vote takes place. Difference is when I walk into this chamber tonight, and it breaks my heart, make no doubt about it, to vote against this budget because everything you've said for the most part is true. Would have been crumbling infrastructure, all this stuff has happened, some of the great stuff we've done. We don't disagree on everything that we're talking about here. Let's be clear on that. But when we leave this chamber tonight, and I'll refer to you, Council Prue, I got a hell of a lot of votes in the last election. And those people, those same people is against this budget. And I would not come in this chamber and tell you that if it wasn't true. And there's no doubt that you know people, and Councilor Valentino, Councilor, Coburn, all of us know people that's either for or against. But you're right, we make up the whole community. But I'm gonna tell you, when people gotta decide to put bread on the table for their children or pay the tax bill because of increase, if you think $60, $70 don't mean much to a young family or someone that's on a fixed income trying to make it, you better think again. We could have had a unanimous decision tonight on this budget, but because of 2% that you brought up, and we were given the money, that 818,000 was not a part of our money or the taxpayers' money. It was given to us by the government to do whatever. And I won't say there was none of it used towards COVID expenses, but certainly the majority was put in a reserve. And absolutely, if we get the ISIP money, it'll work, but these same people will still be earning. So again, I'll be very clear. I'm not happy about having to vote against this budget, but I do it because I believe it's the right thing for the people that we all represent, not just I, we all represent. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Earl had his hand up first.
I briefly here, Councilor Valentino talked about people coming in town. Also talked about high wage people. Most all my votes when I got elected come from Eastwood area. What's up in the Eastwood area? Princeton area. Rentals. So they all got to pay their rent. Councilor Bird suggested just then that it's not going to affect them, but it will. The rent's going up. You know, you got a single mom with 2 kids, barely making it. Don't know. Now I got to pay a $50 increase in rent. Maybe I can't buy 2 jugs of milk this one. That's what it's come down to them people, right? Like I said earlier, I can afford it. God bless me. I'm alive today. I can afford it. But these people, they cannot afford the rent increase. Now you got to, I've seen Carlton's rent now, $1,230 a month. A month. Now you're going to tack another $30, $40 onto that. And who's gonna rent the apartments? Not the doctors or mechanics or that's coming in town, they're gonna buy houses. But that apartment building still gonna be taxed. Who's gonna pay the tax? The owner? If you own the building, would you pay the tax? No, you're gonna put up the rent. Right? So it's all about the people who can afford it. That's what it seems like this council is getting at. But we got more people in this town and the people who can afford things. We got the less fortunate. And God bless me, I was one of them one time. And I've been on the streets for the last 17 years, right down in this center of town, dealing with the people and this and that. And I sit in here in council and listen to people throwing money around trying to fix this. It's not right. It's not right. The money was given to us for the people of Thompson. Not to put it away for future. Most of this council is not gonna be here in 2 years. Right? Some of it's gonna be built off, some won't run, right? You know, we're not gonna be here. Now, this council's putting money away for the future. When you could help today, help the mother with 2 kids, putting food on her table. Helping a person like me who don't have to lay people off. Laid a person off this week. They just bought a house. You know how bad I felt? But I got no choice. I was told, those are them. Right? Now I'm being told, put taxes on. It's not fair. It's not fair. And if you vote for this, God help us in the next election. Thank you, Your Honor. Appreciate your patience and consideration. And if I've done anything wrong, I apologize.
Well, that's fine. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Wong.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did reach out this time to all my colleagues except one, because I know that person will not support my ideology. I'm not trying to defeat this budget, the money allocation, everything, a lot of good work. I heard all the, basically, we all well prepared to come for this to do. Lots of good work, lots of good things. I know. What I'm asking is, it's not the right time. I'm asking for the money that where we spend or where we allocate, we can move it away from now. Just for 1 year. I try to be compromised. You're not to say I want to defeat this. I show the example, how we spend the money. Like I said, good money handled by bad decision. Think about that word. 40 million, good number. Number doesn't lie. What we did to move forward. You think the contractor come out next year to bid on the water, we say, hey, last year we get this sucker 64 a house. This year I'm going to reduce to 35. Please, if someone can assure that. Otherwise, I guarantee you, this money will go up again. Then what? What is 48 million after that? I already did the math for everybody to look at it. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I did not say it's a bad thing. I say it's a good money handled by that bad decision because we do not think outside the box. I put up my argument all the time when it comes to bad money, good money spent in bad way. I did all the time. It's not to say I do not provide a solution. I argue about it, I provide solution. Just like threading the mattress. I provide solution. I did all my math and show everybody. Guess what? I got voted down. Not interested. I provide solution. I say, how can we do this and make it more efficient, cheaper for people? I don't just like to vote again because I like to vote again. I don't like to be grandstanding. I've been called for so many times for grandstanding. You think I like that position? Maybe I earn it, I guess. But I try to be logical. I provide a solution. I provide a number how we can do this to make it work. I did. Again, number doesn't lie. Well, since 2014 to today, every year we're getting so much money, over $1 million surplus to put in reserves. You think that's a coincidence? I always use the same word. Budget for profit. If we look carefully, spend carefully, we can achieve the goal. Last word. I think it's a wrong timing for the money that we decide to spend this year. And I hope everybody can reconsider. We can work things out. I don't want to be the odd one all the time. It's not easy. Stella Lockett taught me this. Put your hands up, you're friend with everybody. But when you put your hand down to against it, you need two things, gut and knowledge. I did it so many times. It's not easy. And again, I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to do my job. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Prue?
I just wanted to state that for, obviously with the budget, it would be, I guess I could say, I guess we all see flaws in the procedures of it, and we all have questions about it, and I would hope that council, that we can meet after whichever way, in the short future, to improve on our systems, because I think not only would we benefit from it, but the city of Thompson and its citizens would benefit from it. That's it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Fong?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think everyone's all tuckered out now. Certainly COVID is probably having some impact on the passion in the room today. First of all, let me thank the administration. I think they've been on the hot seat quite a bit tonight. We own this budget, and I'm voting against it, but I definitely acknowledge that it's been a tough process, and I don't know that it should blow back onto administration the way it appears to have tonight. What I do want to say is this real difficult position to be in. I want to commend Deputy Mayor Wong. First of all, throughout this term, from what I've seen, there's been nobody more fiscally restrained than Deputy Wong, who's questioned pretty much everything that's come in terms of expenditure. I'd like to think that I'm somewhat in that same boat. I certainly want us to have a sustainable budget. Sustainable has been brought up a number of times. There's nobody in this room, I know that we can't talk about it, who can say that this budget is sustainable. I don't see sustainability next year and the year after. And what I'll ask of my colleagues is, as we go to vote tonight for this last vote, we've thrown out that ICP opportunity, and I agree wholeheartedly, that's an opportunity that we cannot pass up on. I'm not sure where that opportunity is, whether it's going to be there, after an election, or what's going to happen to it. But there's very few people in this community who can argue that this city needs a lot of infrastructure work, and this is the solution for it. The amount of money that's coming, potentially coming to us as a result of that, is significant. But what I pose to council and those who are supporting this, think about how little's actually going towards that and where we're going to be next budget. But I honestly feel like we're going to be in a worse position. All of us are going to want to support that money. All of us are going to want to maximize, but it's just not going to be there for other reasons that we can't talk about, which is very frustrating for me. I appeal to you, and I guess is my final word on this. What would make me support this budget? Because I think that's constructive. What would make me support this budget is looking at what we have in terms of expenditures, a lot of which I did not support as we went through this process, and a lot of other people did. And asking ourselves, is that more important than the investment in our community that we have coming up? I would support a budget where we looked at it like that at this point in time and maximized our ability going into next year and the year after to capitalize on that opportunity. The problem is where we're sitting now, I think we're at 1.47%, and then I had proposed going up to 2 in order to add some additional funding for that infrastructure spending, which we need, but it's a drop in the bucket. I think that we could go back and do better than what we have by getting rid of some of the wants instead of some of the needs. And so I threw that to you, as people who are supporting this. So look at that quickly, because I know this is not a sustainable budget. I knew this 2 years, we would be running into trouble. Felt like a knight in shining armor came year after year to get us out of this position. Where we're gonna be in a position next year and the year after that, where we have this opportunity, but we're going to have to sell our shirts. To maximize it. I think we could have done better this time around. My support, or sorry, my failure to support this goes to the issue of sustainability with respect to the portfolio that we can't talk about tonight. It's unfortunate that I can't make the case there. You guys in the room know what that's all about. I guarantee you that's not sustainable. You know that's not sustainable. I know that's not sustainable. Nonetheless, to capitalize on the money, I think we could have done a better job. So please take that and think about it for a second before you give your final vote. The city deserves a lot better. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'm just gonna, based on everybody else, I'm just gonna make a couple comments. The people that have left Thompson, that have talked to me, haven't left necessarily because of taxes. They have left because of this disgracement of the streets and that they have to drive on, and when they have people coming up. They've basically left because of the health, which is on our budget, on our radar to be working on now. They can't get the quality of the health care. That is something that we have also got. And when I listen to everybody talking here tonight, who is actually affected by this 2% budget increase? All of us. The ones that we're worried about are, it's going to cost, because their taxes are so low, it's going to cost them $5. It's all of us in the bigger houses that are going to be paying the $20 a month. They're going to be paying $5 a month. They're already telling me they can afford that. So unless this budget, and we had talked about it in budget, which we didn't, unless this increase only went to the $200,000 plus houses, we really aren't saving anybody anything. We aren't doing anybody a favor, because as you've all stated, you can afford it. Well, this is, sadly, it has to go to everybody. And like I said, basically on the quality of the people that the slower houses, it's only going to cost them $5 a month. It's not going to cost them a lot. They've already reached out to me and said they can afford that for a better quality of life, for better RCMP services here, for better, even just the street sweeping and the cleaning. We decided that was one of the quality of life issues to keep people in Thompson. That's why the COVID money, the community gardens, that is going to benefit the people that want to get out on the land, get away, and can afford some seeds, but maybe can't afford vegetables in the fall. It gives them and their families something to do. So yes, it's been a hard budget, but I really think we have to look at the big picture of really who is that 2% affecting the most. It's definitely not the ones with the low income families. With that, like I said, anybody that I've talked to, they're leaving town more for the state of the town and the services they can't get here. So by working the way we have for the last 2.5 years, and if we continue in this direction with our community safety strategy, I think we have nowhere to go but up, and that's what the people are asking us for. So thank you for that. And if there's no one else, we'll go to a recorded vote. Resolution 2021-075. Call for the question and all those in favor? Councillor Valentino, Councillor McMurdo, Councillor Prue, Mayor Smook.
Right.
Councillor Lenmark. Opposed? Deputy Mayor Wong, Councillor Fountain, Councillor Ellsworth, and Councillor Colburn. Carried. Thank you. Very good discussion. Respectful tonight. I appreciate it. Due to the lateness tonight, I'm not going to go over my mayor's report page. But what I would like to mention before I adjourn is this is National Nurses Week. Nobody has put more in to our system, our province, our city, than the nurses, the ones that worked in the hospital, the ones that are doing the vaccine, especially out on the Indigenous communities, on the outlying communities, when that's all they have sometimes is them, no doctor in that to support. So I really hope you all join me tonight in thanking all the nurses, whether it be home care, foot care, whatever. Without the nurses in our system, we would definitely not be better off. So thank you, and call for adjournment. Deputy Mayor Wong.
Please, if you
Madam
would.
Mayor,
Yes.
I have an announcement
Mhm.
to be made. Tonight, I'd like to resign my position of the Chair of Finance. And thank you for the opportunity. And make myself and my family proud that the minority can see such a high position for this term. But because I voted against the budget, it will be tough for me to move forward in the future to spend all the money that approved by tonight. So due to that reason, I think it's appropriate for me to step down as a chair of the finance. And thank you again.
Thank you. Administration, is there any other protocol that?
Nothing, we'll have to review the procedure and organization.
Thank you, Duncan. I appreciate your commitment to council or to finance and legal. Councilor Fountain?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think that given the heat of the evening, it may be appropriate to end with the thought to Mrs. Walker again, Councilor Walker. I owe my being here to her, so I don't know how happy I should be.
Is it, are you owing or are you blaming her?
Yeah, that's tough. I sat down in her office one day and we were talking. I had just come from overseas and I had spent some time in Japan. And of course, everything in that country runs smooth and it's clean. But of course, they have the benefit of 130 million people in a country the size of Manitoba. So that helps them a lot. It's certainly frustrating to see what's happened though to our city over the years. And she said to me, you know, you're sitting here and we're talking about this, take some responsibility and get on council and do something. And council certainly has not been easy for any of us, I'm sure. And I've certainly had times where I've regretted coming to sit in the chambers and, you know, there's certain instances where it's been tough for sure. But I'm very, very happy to have served the city and I continue for the rest of this term to be happy to do that. I think we're all privileged to sit here and do this. And Stella did that for, I think it's around 20 years or over 20 years.
Close to 25.
Thank you very much. So one of our longest serving, a female at that. And I know, having spoken to her, that she had run into some real significant obstacles in being a female here. And many times, many of her opinions were sort of looked past. And I felt like that was unfortunate to her. Of course, Councillor Locker got the last laugh in that she was often the person with the highest vote count without any effort on her part. So kudos to her. I think there's nothing that we can say but thank you to her for her service. In addition to that, I want to say thank you to her family. Because the time I've spent here, what I've noticed is that my kids, certainly, it impacts my kids. That's one of my biggest regrets about serving is that they pick up on the negative and they don't see the positive as easily. And I can't imagine that it was easy for Councillor Locker in those years to do that for the time that she did. So to her family, thank you so much for giving us her time. And may Stella rest in peace. And I will always have a little piece of her love and hate for what she did to me for being here. Thank you very much, Stella, and you'll be remembered. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. Councillor Elder.
Yeah, it's amazing, Jeff, that you would tell that story very quickly. I won't repeat what you've said, but Stella was also very instrumental in me running. She wanted me to run a lot earlier than I did. And I argued and we spent an hour and a half in her office, but you probably could be selling the house, but you choose to talk to me. She sacrificed that time. And so I owe her a debt of gratitude as well. That's how I ended up here thinking, now that I'm retired, I can give some time at the city. And I don't regret my time at the city. It's frustrating I believe we all at the end of the day want the same thing. We just see it through different lens. And I am disappointed tonight. I'm disappointed that we couldn't all agree unanimously on the budget. But you know, that's democracy at its best. And tomorrow, Councilor McMurdo or Councilor Valentino, Councilor Lundmark, Councilor Peru, and Mayor Smoot, I'm still going to talk to you. You know, that's beyond us. And if you understand the municipal act and how we've been trained, we move on. The decision, and this is what I want to leave it, the decision of council is made. We passed the budget, whether we like it or not, it's done. Now, you woke up something in me that I don't know if I'll be able to put the fire rate for the next year and a half, but I do respect people. And yes, Jeff, Councilor Fountain, Stella won't be forgotten. I can guarantee you, and her family, like you said, deserves, there's no different in the job that came out of it. It's the same thing. Your family stands by you. It's very important. And they do give up a lot. And we're still giving around this table. That's what we do. But you sure ain't here for the money because we'd be in a tough position. What? So thank you.
Yeah. Duncan?
Thank you. I just want to touch on the Stella Locker. A lot of people might not know. The reason I ran is because of Stella. I'm serious. She took 10 years to convince me. 2004, she said, listen, we need business people. I said, no, I'm not doing this. She kept on asking me every time I walk by her office. And same thing, my first house bought from them too. So a lot of memory about her. A lot of time I had frustration about whatever happened. I always go to vent to her. She's my mentor. So, and she will be missed for sure. Same as, like I say to Susan Facebook there, I say, well, hopefully they go to the better place. And Judy and her, to talk politics now and look down to us and say, hey, see, told you. Thank you, man.
Okay, thank you. And I just think it should be noted that Stella did start her career as a nurse.
Yeah.
So it's quite fitting this week. And the reason that she didn't get hired in Thompson was because she was married. They had to be single. They were only hiring single nurses in Thompson at the time. So that is why Stella chose a different career path than nursing, was because I wouldn't hire her because she was a single woman. And I'm sorry to add to you guys, but between her and Councillor Collada, they were my two mentors that kept talking me into running too. So half of the council has been approached by Judy and Stella. So anyway, so thank you. I will call for adjournment now. Councillor Valentino, Councillor Prue, all in favor?
Okay.
Thank you, and it's been a rough night, but thank you, everybody. As you say,